Lucy Li was born in 1995 in Shenzhen, one of China's largest economic centers. She is the oldest of three triplet sisters, born just minutes apart. In search of a better life, her parents decided to leave China and move to Canada, leaving their young daughters in the care of relatives. The family would not reunite for 7 years until the girls were finally brought to Toronto. Lucy's father, a determined and business-minded individual, opened a driving school to help immigrants obtain their licenses. However, the family's main financial success came from her mother, Winnie, who founded a financial firm called Respond International. Winnie quickly became well known for her ability to navigate tax regulations and manage investments effectively, earning a strong reputation in the finance industry. Her influence was so significant that she was featured in business magazines, and her picture appeared alongside leading Canadian politicians. However, this path to success came with many sacrifices, especially in family relationships. Winnie was often absent from her daughters' lives, and when she was present, it was mainly to oversee their achievements. She expected perfection in all areas: academics, sports, and the arts. The three sisters were required to be fluent in multiple languages, play musical instruments, understand finance, and excel in academic competitions. Any mistakes were unacceptable. Lucy tried hard to meet these high expectations, but she quickly felt that her accomplishments were undervalued. Her mother never celebrated her successes, viewing them as merely the minimum standard. As a result, Lucy began to feel like an outsider in her own family. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in a small town in Slovakia, Oliver Carafa was born. His family was not wealthy, but his parents were determined to provide him with a good education and the opportunity to build a successful future. When he was 8, his family moved to Canada in search of better opportunities. Unlike Lucy, his childhood didn't have many rules. He grew up with a sense of freedom and independence, but as a teenager he began to go down the wrong path. He was attracted to risky behaviors and sought the excitement of pushing limits, showing little interest in school and viewing discipline as irrelevant. Oliver and Lucy's paths crossed when they both attended the same school. Lucy was a model student, while Oliver frequently broke the rules. Despite their differences, they became friends. Oliver does not like to follow the wishes of others, which intrigues Lucy. He is the first person to see her not just through her list of achievements. Over time, their friendship developed into romance. This was Lucy's first relationship that wasn't influenced by family expectations or pressure. However, like many teenage relationships, it didn't last. They soon realized that they and their visions of the future were not the same. After high school, they went their separate ways. Lucy followed her mother's plan and enrolled in a finance program at a prestigious university, preparing for a career in the family business. Oliver, on the other hand, pursued a reckless lifestyle, driven by a love for risk and the allure of quick money. At 19, he drove under the influence and crashed into a streetlight, resulting in one death and serious injuries to another passenger. Although he suffered only minor injuries, his life was changed forever. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and banned from driving for 15 years. Years later, fate brought him and Lucy together again, but this time, their reunion was no longer an innocent teenage romance. Instead, they will face secrets, crimes, and a life that is more complicated than it seems. Lucy attended one of Canada's top universities, majoring in finance and global business, though the decision was never truly hers. Her mother had determined the fields her daughters would study, ensuring that they would occupy important positions in the family business. Lucy realized that her education was not about self-discovery, but rather part of a plan she had never chosen. Throughout her college years, she was closely monitored and expected to excel. Graduating wasn't sufficient, she had to do so with top honors. Any mistake was perceived as a failure, and even the smallest divergence from the plan would result in her mother's disappointment. Lucy constantly strives, achieving many academic awards, interning at prestigious companies and building an excellent resume. Immediately after graduating, she was brought into the family business. Her mother, Winnie, expected her to take over the financial operations and eventually lead the company. To most people, this might seem like a clear path to success, but to Lucy, it feels like she's stuck in a life her mother has planned out for her. While Lucy was engulfed in strict discipline and career demands, Oliver was serving his time and building connections. Among his fellow inmates were people involved in illegal activities, including car theft and various scams. They recognized Oliver's appetite for risk and ambition, and taught him tactics for circumventing the law. These lessons helped him start his business in the shadows. In 2019, after 5 years in prison, Oliver was released. However, adjusting to life outside was more challenging than he had anticipated. Lacking formal education and legitimate work experience, he struggled to find well-paying legal jobs. Additionally, a driving ban limited his freedom. During this time, he sought a new direction and briefly explored modeling, using his looks to earn some money. He landed a few roles in small advertising campaigns, which didn't pay much but helped him cultivate an image of success. It was then that he decided to reconnect with Lucy. They hadn't seen each other in years. Back in school, she was an energetic student with a bright future, but now she is very different. Her social media is filled with images from lavish parties, exciting trips, and meals at upscale restaurants. She has become a famous person, followed by many and frequently collaborating with brands. Oliver reached out to her. Their conversation begins with memories of the past and quickly moves to their present lives. Lucy revealed that although she had met all of her mother's expectations, she was not happy. Her success felt dictated by others rather than herself. Oliver, on the other hand, described his struggles and his desire for a new beginning. A few days later, they met at a restaurant, where they discussed how much they had transformed. Oliver exuded confidence as he spoke of new prospects, and Lucy listened, captivated by his sense of freedom. Unlike her, he wasn't restricted by corporate constraints or family pressures. He was living life on his own terms. Just weeks after reconnecting, Lucy made an unexpected decision. She packed her things and moved in with Oliver, cutting ties with her old life and abandoning the future plans her mother had worked so hard to build. She chose an uncertain path instead of a clear path. At that time, she did not foresee that this choice would not bring freedom, but lead to great trouble. Lucy leaving shocked her mother, Winnie. Known for her strict rules, Winnie expected her daughters to obey. When she learned that Lucy was with Oliver, a man with a criminal history, her response was immediate and harsh. Lucy's bank accounts were frozen overnight, and all financial support was withdrawn. Instead of turning back, this only fueled Lucy's determination to prove she could manage without her mother's assistance. However, Lucy soon realized her independence was a facade. Within weeks, it became evident that her career as an influencer was not providing enough income. Accustomed to a lavish lifestyle, she found herself relying entirely on Oliver for financial stability. He seemed unconcerned, confidently assuring her that he had several income sources and that she didn't need to worry. Oliver claimed his money came from investments, flipping cars, rare items, and other profitable ventures. Lucy didn't question him. She wanted to believe life could be that simple. Lucy gradually became more involved in Oliver's business. Since he was banned from driving due to past legal issues, she took on the role of his full-time driver. At first, driving him to meetings and picking people up seemed unimportant, and she often waited in the car while he conducted business. However, she soon noticed that their routes were consistently different and that most trips occurred late at night. When Oliver first asked Lucy to sign documents in her name, she felt uneasy. The paperwork was connected to vehicles she had never seen, but he assured her that it was just a normal part of his business in exporting and reselling cars to high-end clients. He insisted everything was legal, though it required some workaround methods. Trusting him, she signed the documents, managed accounts, and assisted with transactions, believing she was merely helping with business operations. In reality, she was already entangled in a criminal enterprise, with Oliver using her identity to create a facade of legitimacy for his dealings. Despite having unstable finances, they lived in luxury. Their apartment was in a wealthy part of Toronto. They frequently changed cars and never questioned restaurant prices. Designer clothes, jewelry, and lavish vacations became their new reality. Lucy did not realize that she was becoming increasingly dependent on Oliver, not just for money but for her entire lifestyle. He convinced her that they were a team and that without him, she could not maintain this way of living. Unbeknownst to her, she was already on the brink of a major crisis. In the spring of 2020, Oliver had a chance to elevate his business. Through mutual acquaintances, he came to know Tyler Pratt, who seemed to be a successful entrepreneur. Tyler owned various companies, including those in dietary supplements and investments, but his real income came from illegal activities. He was deeply involved in the trade of banned substances in Canada, managing both imports and distribution. After his divorce, Tyler sought new investment opportunities and aimed to legitimize some of his assets, gradually stepping away from the underground economy. He needed a trustworthy partner with a promising business idea, and Oliver seemed perfect, young, ambitious, well-connected, and confident. Oliver arranged a dinner to present himself as an expert in logistics and international trade. He confidently discussed various lucrative opportunities, including automobile imports and real estate, but his main focus was on a new idea: supplying personal protective equipment, PPE. Amid the chaos, the demand for masks, protective suits, gloves, and other essential supplies was unprecedented. Oliver proposed a project that he believed could earn millions by sourcing PPE from Asia and selling it at higher prices in Western markets. With demand surging and suppliers eager for cash transactions, the plan seemed promising. Tyler was intrigued by the idea. Although experienced in business, he lacked knowledge of the legal market. Oliver reassures Tyler that he can handle the deals through his connections. Swayed by this assurance, Tyler invested $200,000, hoping for a quick profit, perhaps even doubling or tripling his investment. Over the next few weeks, Oliver maintained a facade of success. He provided Tyler with fake purchase reports, forged contracts from supposed legitimate suppliers, and banking documents that suggested successful transactions. Tyler believed his investment was safe and profitable. A month later, Oliver claimed that the project required more funding and insisted on an additional investment. He noted the growing demand, presenting it as an opportunity for even greater profits. Excited, Tyler invested another $500,000. Shortly after this second investment, Tyler began to notice concerning signs. Despite his money being transferred, shipments of PPE were not arriving. Oliver continued to assure him that everything was fine, but Oliver's excuses, logistical delays, customs issues, and bureaucratic red tape became increasingly unbelievable. Tyler wasn't gullible. He understood how business operated and refused to let his money simply disappear. As he increasingly demanded proof of the shipments, Oliver realized he was losing control. Panic set in when Tyler requested tangible evidence, but Oliver had none to provide. Desperate for a solution, Oliver asked Lucy for help, proposing that they delay Tyler to gain some extra time. Their only idea was to commit check fraud. Lucy finds an old check in her mother's business records and attempts to withdraw over $1 million from her mother's account, hoping that the transaction will go undetected. However, the bank flags the transaction when a manager, who knows her mother, notices that her mother's signature is fake and asks for verification. As a result, the transaction is blocked. Lucy and Oliver's plan had failed, and they were now cornered. Tyler no longer trusted their explanations and issued an ultimatum. He wanted his money back, or there would be serious consequences. Realizing they were in a dire situation, Oliver concluded that the only way to resolve the issue was to eliminate Tyler. He discussed this with Lucy, who felt conflicted. While she recognized the gravity of their predicament, committing a crime felt like going too far. Nevertheless, Oliver argued that they had no other option. Tyler wouldn't forgive betrayal, and their safety could be at stake. The plan came together quickly. They invited Tyler and his girlfriend, Jordan Romano, to a meeting under the guise of discussing a new business opportunity. Oliver claimed he had found a way to recover the lost funds. Although skeptical, Tyler agreed to meet one last time on February 28, 2021, around 6 p.m. When Tyler and Jordan arrived at the warehouse location, they were unaware it was a trap. Oliver had carefully prepared for this. He bought a used car with cash to leave no trace and obtained a disposable phone to communicate with Tyler. To further disguise herself, Lucy wore a wig to change her appearance. As soon as Tyler got out of the car, Oliver brandished a weapon. His first shots were directed at Jordan. He knew that eliminating a witness would alter the course of any future investigation. The bullet hit her in the chest, and she fell, unconscious. Tyler froze, realizing this was the end. Oliver didn't give him a chance to react. Oliver aimed the weapon at Tyler and fired without hesitation. Several shots were fired, and Tyler collapsed, instantly losing consciousness. Lucy stood nearby, aware of the situation but not intervening, knowing there was no turning back. In that moment, their lives shifted forever. They were no longer just con artists. They had become involved in something far more serious. Oliver quickly checked on Jordan to confirm that she had stopped breathing. After determining that she no longer showed any signs of life, he left her body next to Tyler's car and instructed Lucy to leave, believing they had eliminated all witnesses. They believed they had successfully concealed their crime. However, an unexpected incident occurred within an hour. Around 7:20 p.m., a truck driver passing by spotted someone lying near the entrance of the warehouse. It was Jordan. Despite her injuries, she was still alive and had managed to move just enough to attract the driver's attention. The man immediately called for emergency help. When paramedics arrived, they found that Jordan was still breathing. Although she was unconscious, her pulse was steady. No one knew how long she had been lying on the cold concrete floor, but it was evident that she had miraculously survived. She was rushed to the hospital, where surgeons performed emergency procedures to save her life. Meanwhile, law enforcement arrived to investigate the warehouse and discovered Tyler's body. He had died instantly from multiple gunshot wounds. There were no security cameras and no immediate witnesses, but Jordan was the key to solving the case. As Jordan fought for her life, detectives began their investigation. Detectives thoroughly examined Jordan's call logs, messages, and recent activities. Within hours, they discovered that she and Tyler had contacted Oliver before the attack. This meeting was not a coincidence. It had been orchestrated by Oliver, now their main suspect. Meanwhile, Oliver and Lucy are unaware that their plan has failed. As they watched the news and heard reports about an unknown attacker, they felt confident that everything had gone as planned. However, their confidence turned to fear when the anchor announced that one of the victims had survived and was in stable condition. Lucy became paralyzed with fear, while Oliver began pacing the room, realizing that Jordan had seen their faces, heard their voices, and could identify them once she woke up. The police would have a detailed description of the assailants. With their situation becoming dire, their only option was to flee. Oliver contacted associates who could provide fake passports and arrange their escape. They had enough money stashed from Tyler's theft. Their main concern was time. Within hours, they met with people who helped them secure new identities. Lucy received a fake passport as a Philippine citizen, while Oliver took on the identity of a Hungarian national. These papers allowed them to board a plane to Europe without arousing suspicion. Their first destination was Prague, chosen for its status as a busy transit hub filled with tourists and subject to fewer checks. They rented a short-term apartment, hoping to stay hidden while they planned their next moves. The first few days passed without incident as they avoided drawing attention and only went out when necessary. However, fear lingered. Oliver frequently checked the news, anxious about the moment when their names might appear on an international wanted list. Lucy was largely silent, struggling with the feeling that they were no longer just scammers. They had crossed a line and there was no turning back. A few days later, they moved to Bratislava and then to Budapest, thinking that by constantly changing locations they would avoid being pursued. In reality, however, they simply left a clearer trail for the authorities. Their false sense of security was short-lived. Oliver mistakenly believed that the police wouldn't find them quickly, but within weeks, the scenario changed. International law enforcement agencies became involved, tightening the net. Unbeknownst to Oliver and Lucy, their capture was inevitable. While they tried to vanish in Europe, Canadian authorities remained relentless in their investigation. The investigation made significant progress by analyzing phone records. Detectives traced a SIM card purchased just one day before the crime at a store in Toronto, which had been used to contact Tyler. Upon further investigation, they discovered that one of Lucy's friends had inadvertently provided her with a spare SIM card. During questioning, the friend disclosed that Lucy had requested it, providing the first solid evidence against her. The next breakthrough came from reviewing security footage. Investigators found recordings from the area near the warehouse showing a vehicle with fake identification passing by just hours before the attack. The people in the car closely resembled Oliver and Lucy. Additionally, cameras near their apartment captured them leaving on the evening of February 28 and returning late that night, reinforcing police suspicions. After Jordan regained consciousness, she confirmed the identities of the attackers as Lucy and Oliver. This confirmation led authorities to issue arrest warrants. Canadian law enforcement quickly shared the case details with Interpol, and within days, Oliver and Lucy were added to an international wanted list, with their descriptions, photographs, and last known locations sent to law enforcement agencies in Europe. Meanwhile, Lucy and Oliver were on the run but not unnoticed. Hungarian authorities were alerted and began watching for foreign travelers resembling their descriptions. Ultimately, Oliver made a critical mistake by using fake documents to pay rent for their apartment, raising suspicions. The landlord reported the suspicious tenants, and after verifying their identities as fugitives on the Interpol list, a special task force was sent to arrest them. They were arrested immediately, and although Lucy attempted to argue that it was a misunderstanding, the officers were fully aware of who they were taking into custody. Within hours, they were taken to a detention center, and extradition procedures to Canada began. Their time on the run was over, and now they had to face justice. By spring 2024, the trial of Lucy and Oliver gained nationwide attention. It became one of the most discussed cases in Canada, two young people who had numerous opportunities for success but instead chose a life of crime that ended in a deadly act. The trial lasted several weeks. Prosecutors presented a strong case with overwhelming evidence linking Lucy and Oliver to the crimes against Tyler and Jordan. This included call records, surveillance videos, financial transactions, and, most importantly, the testimony of a surviving witness, Jordan. Lucy's main defense was to blame Oliver. She claimed that she was not involved in planning the crime, was unaware of Tyler's fate, and was merely a victim of manipulation. She argued that Oliver was in control and that she had simply followed him without fully understanding the seriousness of their actions. However, the evidence told a different story. Prosecutors showed that Lucy had actively participated in financial schemes, helped hide stolen money, arranged the meeting with Tyler, and even tried to forge financial documents. Her choice to flee and use a fake passport only strengthened the prosecution's case. Oliver, on the other hand, did not testify. His defense team argued that the crime was not planned, but rather a consequence of a conflict. However, the court rejected this argument. At this point, the final piece of evidence from the security footage showed that Lucy had deliberately concealed her face during the meeting with Tyler. In addition, records showed that she had purchased a SIM card to lure him into a trap. This evidence completely undermined her version of the story. The verdict was severe but anticipated. Oliver Carafa and Lucy Lee were found guilty of the crimes of fraud and evading justice. Both were sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole only after 25 years. The trial had concluded, but its effects continued to resonate. Lucy, who once lived a life of luxury, is now in prison. Oliver, who was always looking for adventure, has lost his freedom forever. Their story becomes a lesson in how greed and the desire to get rich quick can lead to disaster. After the trial, there were mixed opinions from the public. Some viewed Tyler Pratt as a victim, a man who misplaced his trust and ultimately suffered for it. His family and friends defended him, stating that he was attempting to move beyond his past and enter the legitimate business world. Others argued that he had a hand in his own downfall. He was aware of the risks and willingly engaged in questionable financial dealings. Lucy Lee became a symbol of untapped opportunities. Born into privilege, she had every chance to live comfortably without resorting to crime, yet she chose a different path that drew her away from her mother and into financial fraud, culminating in serious crime. After her arrest, her mother, Winnie, chose not to make any public comments. Although her reputation in the business world was affected, she chose to remain silent rather than seek media attention. Over time, she distanced herself almost completely from Lucy, providing no support or defense. Conversely, many regarded Oliver as a criminal whose fate was predetermined. His troubled history and reckless decisions had put him on this path long before the crime occurred, so his conviction did not surprise most people. The case resulted in multiple lives being shattered, Tyler lost his future, and Jordan not only lost her spouse but was also left devastated, as she was pregnant at the time of the incident. In the aftermath, Jordan lost her unborn child, which added to the tragedy. It started with the intention of making easy money, but it turned into a complete disaster. In the end, everyone involved paid a heavy toll through lost lives, lost freedom, or lost fortunes. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Lauren McCluskey. Since she was a child, Lauren McCluskey has been a very talented person. She dances, sings, and is an excellent track and field athlete. She has won many medals and awards. Eventually, she received an offer from the University of Utah and left her hometown of Pullman, Washington, to start a new life in Salt Lake City. At the university, she participates in athletics competitions, including the 100-meter dash, hurdles, high jump, shot put, long jump, javelin throw, and 800-meter run. Her talent made her one of the standout athletes on the university team. Besides, she also studies well in the communication department and makes friends with many people. However, in September 2018, her life took a tragic turn. On a Friday evening, Lauren and her friends decided to go dancing and have drinks at a small club near the University of Utah. During the evening, a man caught her attention. As the night wound down, he introduced himself as Sean Phillips, saying he worked as a security guard at the club and was also a student at Salt Lake Community College. He was 28 years old. Despite their age difference, but they quickly found common ground. His charm and interest in her drew her in, and they exchanged phone numbers, planning to meet again the following day to spend more time together. Lauren felt very happy to meet Sean. She even called her mother, Jill McCluskey, to tell her about him. Sean gives her flowers at dinner, tries to be charming and gently proposes. He was tall, muscular, handsome, and very sociable guy. He quickly found common ground with Lauren, an energetic and friendly girl. He often stayed overnight in her dorm room, and she even let him borrow her car. However, some concerning behaviors began to surface. Initially, Sean encouraged Lauren to invite her friends to their gatherings, but then, he started telling her how to dress, usually in a t-shirt and jeans. When she was with her friends, he would constantly call, asking where she was, who she was with, and when she would return. If she didn't respond immediately, he would become upset. Lauren explained to friends that Sean's behavior stemmed from insecurities caused by past relationships and believed that over time, this would improve. Sean begins to explain to Lauren the importance of being careful around others and always being prepared for unfortunate situations that may arise. He bought her a can of pepper spray and insisted she carry it everywhere. He also took her to a shooting range and asked her to purchase a gun for him. Around this time, Lauren cut off all communication with her friends and spent all her time outside of school with Sean, focusing solely on training with him. Concerned, her friends reached out to the dorm staff where she lived. The staff, already uneasy about Sean's frequent presence in the dorms, grew even more alarmed when they discovered that he was tracking Lauren's movements on campus, monitoring her comings and goings. It became evident that he was not just overly jealous but was attempting to control and manipulate Lauren's life. Something was clearly wrong. As it turned out, Sean was not who he had introduced himself to be. One day, Lauren accidentally saw a photo of his ID card and learned the truth. Sean Phillips was not a 28-year-old college student or the kind, trustworthy person he pretended to be. His real name was Melvin Sean Rowland, and in fact he is 38 years old, born in 1981. He was skilled at fabricating stories and concealing his true identity. Investigators later uncovered several women who had been deceived by his lies in different ways. Unknowingly, Lauren had become one of his victims. After seeing his ID card, she begins to realize the truth about him. Melvin's true identity came to light on October 5th when Lauren returned to her home in Pullman, Washington. She confided in a friend, sharing everything that had happened. The friend suggested searching online for information about Melvin Sean Rowland. The search revealed alarming details. Melvin was a sex offender. In 2004, he was convicted of luring a minor and attempting to forcibly harass her. He spent 9 years in state prison and was released on parole in September 2013. Realizing the truth, Lauren knew she had to end the relationship with him. Lauren returns to college in Utah and makes plans to break up with Melvin. On October 9th, she called and asked him to come over. When he arrived, the planned breakup didn't happen, and he stayed the night in Lauren's room. She later told her friends that Melvin had apologized for lying about himself and explained an incident involving a false age claim by a girl at a fraternity party. He insisted that the other allegations against him were untrue. Lauren's friends were doubtful of his story and urged her to end the relationship, which she did the following day. Afterward, Lauren called her mother to explain what had happened. She mentioned that she planned to meet Melvin that evening to get her car back. Her mother, Jill, grew very concerned about the situation. Worrying about her daughter's safety, Jill contacted campus police to inform them and asked them to keep an eye on Lauren while she got her car back. Jill felt uneasy and deeply anxious. Jill, dreading the idea of Melvin, who seemed to bring trouble into Lauren's life, being anywhere near she. Lauren was able to pick up her car without any issues, and both she and Melvin carried on with their lives. After that, she had a short period of peace. She focused on her studies and began to rebuild her routine. However, this peace is soon broken by messages sent from unknown phone numbers, all referencing Melvin. Concerned, she contacted the police, leaving a message with the operator, but no one got back to her that day. Then a message arrived from Melvin's number, saying he was fine, but hinting that something strange was happening. Soon after, messages from anonymous numbers continued to arrive, affirmed that they were in possession of sensitive photos of Lauren and Melvin. The sender demanded $10,000, threatening to release the photos online if they do not receive the money. On the morning of October 13th, Melvin emailed Lauren, revealing that he was also being blackmailed. He advised her to pay the money, so she sent $10,000 to the unknown blackmailer. However, she began to suspect that Melvin himself might be behind the blackmail rather than an unknown party. Feeling insecure, she contacted the University of Utah police. The dispatcher forwarded her complaint to Miguel Dasso, a University of Utah police officer. Wanting to address the situation directly, Lauren and her friend walked across campus to speak with the officer in person. When they arrived, they met with the police and told the whole story, including giving Melvin's name and that he was a sex offender. Police believe this was a hoax and that Lauren may have made up the story about the death threat. Lauren and her friend believed that they had taken the necessary steps and that the problem would soon be resolved. Unfortunately, almost no action was taken. Officer Miguel received copies of the messages and images involved, even adding one of the photos to his personal collection. He later bragged to another officer that he could now view it whenever he wanted. Lauren received no follow-up from the university police despite her repeated calls to the station, during which she explained to the dispatcher that she was being blackmailed again. In October, near Lauren's dorm, Melvin was spotted loitering in the parking lot, wearing a suit. About 45 minutes later, she returned to her dorm after track practice. At the time, no one knew who Melvin was. She entered the dorm and went upstairs. Shortly afterward, Melvin, now dressed as Deadpool, approached the dorm door. He later claimed he knew Lauren had called the police, leading her to suspect that someone at the police department had informed him about the situation. Lauren had forgotten that a few weeks ago, she had used Melvin's phone to log in and check her email. This gave him access to her communications with the police, friends, and family without her realizing it. She contacted the Salt Lake City Police, hoping they could connect her with another department for assistance. However, under the jurisdictional rules, police said they were not of much help, as their jurisdiction was limited to campus. This also prevents Officer Miguel from taking action outside of campus. Additionally, some have suggested that Lauren's assumption that someone in the police department had leaked information to Melvin may make her paranoid. Phone records revealed that she called both police departments multiple times over several days, desperately seeking a solution. On October 22, the situation took a dire turn. CCTV footage showed Melvin leaving his apartment at 6 a.m. He rented a car from his neighbor and drove to the parking lot in front of Lauren's dorm, arriving at 9 a.m. He walked toward the building just as she was leaving her dorm. Around that time, she received a text message, supposedly from Deputy Chief McLennan of the University Police, asking her to come to the station to review evidence. Sensing something was off, she ignored the message and instead went to meet with a counselor, who had been helping her deal with the breakup and its aftermath. At that time, Melvin was in the same building as Lauren. He was carrying a small suitcase. He was looking for she but couldn't find her, so he went to her dorm instead. There, he managed to gain access. Once inside, he spoke with a group of 4 students. Over time, 3 of them left, leaving 1 student behind. The remaining student later told police that Melvin asked if he wanted to see what was inside the suitcase. Inside was a .40 caliber Beretta pistol and a full magazine. He even let the student handle the gun before leaving. Meanwhile, Lauren had finished her evening class and was preparing to return to her dorm. It had been a difficult week, so she decided to call her parents and take a short walk across campus while talking to them. At the same time, Melvin left the dorm, intending to intercept her on her usual route back. As Lauren walked, she told her parents about her day, and they listened closely. Suddenly, they heard her scream as Melvin began chasing her. Her father, Matthew, immediately called 911. Melvin grabbed Lauren, forced her into the car with a gun and pushed her into the back seat. Then, he shooting her 7 times at close range. After opening fire, he drove through the parking lot, crossed the bridge and continued straight to the nearest subway station in Salt Lake. There, he waited calmly at a bus stop and made a phone call, having already arranged for someone to pick him up. A woman eventually arrived, and he got into her car. The two went out for dinner and took a walk around a nearby building, attempting to appear as though they were casually spending time together, likely to create an alibi for the time of the murder. Meanwhile, police began searching the area. This side, Lauren's parents are dying to know what's going on with their daughter. Students and volunteers began searching west of the North Medical Tower. A team of 6 officers, along with a police dog, joined the search, moving north. Eventually, they discovered Lauren's body inside a silver vehicle. Police cordoned off the crime scene and initiated a nationwide manhunt for Melvin. Authorities had been repeatedly warned that he posed a danger to Lauren, but by the time they acted, it was too late. Now, their only focus was capturing her killer, Melvin. At this time, Melvin was still on the run. He rushed into Trinity Church in Salt Lake City to seek refuge. Police followed him into the building. They also knew that he had weapons and ready to fight back. They searched the church room by room until a single gunshot rang out. Melvin ended his life. When officers found him, the manhunt ended. However, the tragedy was far from over. Lauren, an innocent young woman, was murdered, causing people to demand clarity on the matter. Why had no one taken even the simplest measures to prevent this? How could someone who had pleaded for help and provided all the necessary information be so blatantly ignored? The university had failed to conduct even a basic background check on Melvin. Why hadn't they done so? If they had looked into his history and contacted his probation officer, he will be sent back to prison soon. He has been incarcerated for violating the terms of his probation and has a history of making provocative statements during his parole hearings. When reporters asked Melvin's parole officer if he could have been sent back to prison, the officer made it clear Melvin would have been arrested immediately if the police department informed them of his actions. Officer Miguel Dasso has left the University of Utah Police Force to join the Logan Police Department. However, after his actions came to light, he was promptly fired. Under state obscenity laws, he faces charges for mishandling evidence and showing it to another officer. These charges were later dropped because a data analysis of his phone showed insufficient evidence. Although the charges were dismissed, his actions caused significant harm. What is particularly troubling is that the district attorney has decided not to proceed with the case against him. The case also raises questions about where Melvin got the gun he used. As a parolee and convicted felon, he was legally prohibited from purchasing or possessing a firearm. Investigations revealed that he acquired the gun through a friend, who was also a convicted felon. The friend had his girlfriend purchase the gun on Melvin's behalf. If the gun had not been handed to Lauren would likely still be alive. The McCluskey family sued the University of Utah and its police force, accusing them of being irresponsible and incompetent in handling Lauren's request for help. The lawsuits, initially seeking $56 million, were resolved through settlements. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Charlotte Brown. 20-year-old Charlotte Brown from Essex, a county in the southeast of England, was having a conversation with her sister Katie and a friend. They were discussing where to meet a young man. Charlotte shared that she was looking for a serious, long-term relationship and wasn't very interested in dating sites. However, her sister suggested a new dating site to her, and after some consideration, Charlotte signed up. Soon after, she received a message from a 24-year-old named Jack Shepard. They began chatting online and got to know each other better. Things were going well. Jack and Charlotte planned to meet in person. However, on the day of their meeting, Jack sent Charlotte a text message apologizing and explaining that he couldn't meet because he was getting back together with his ex-girlfriend. Feeling frustrated, Charlotte decided to block Jack and continued her search for love on the site. A few months later, Jack reached out to Charlotte again. He expressed his sincere apologies for disappointing her and asked if they could meet to make amends. Charlotte agreed to go on a date with him. On December 8, 2015, Jack wanted to impress Charlotte, so he took her to the Shard, a well-known skyscraper in Londo. While enjoying wine and conversation, they seemed to be having a great time. Charlotte took photos and shared them with her sister. Later, Jack invited her to his boathouse to continue their evening, and she agreed. After Jack paid the bill, they took a taxi to his place, which was 10 miles away from Charlotte's home in Hammersmith. When they arrived at the boathouse and had a drink, Jack bragged about his boat and suggested they go out. Charlotte loved the idea, as she was hoping for a romantic adventure. She sent a text message to her sister, letting her know about the boat trip, but her sister appeared worried about the matter. Charlotte reassured her sister that everything would be fine. Charlotte had a great time on the boat, capturing the moments in photos and videos to send to her sister. They were sailing along the Thames one December night. Charlotte was laughing and even shouting with excitement. However, Jack began to speed up, and soon they were going twice the speed limit on the river. Witnesses observed the boat speeding along the Thames. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, followed by a cry for help. People called 911 to report that someone had fallen into the river and needed help nearby. Jack was holding on to the sides of the boat with his hands. The boat capsized near Onslow Bridge after hitting a submerged log. Police arrived at the scene and began searching the area, assisted by officers from the Marine Corps Support Unit and Air Support. At 11:40 p.m. that night, they found Jack clinging to the side of a boat, but Charlotte was missing. The Air Support Unit lit up the river with powerful searchlights to search for the Charlotte. When the lifeboat arrived, they discovered Charlotte, but she showed no signs of life. They attempted CPR on Charlotte, but it was to no avail. Her body grew colder and colder, and by the time she reached the hospital, she was pronounced dead. An autopsy revealed that Charlotte had died from prolonged exposure to cold water. The next day, the police brought in Jack Shepherd for questioning. Meanwhile, Charlotte's sister Katie had been texting her and was growing increasingly worried as she had not received a response throughout the night. Although Katie was busy with work during the day and could not be reached, it was clear that all of her texts and calls had gone unanswered. Additionally, Charlotte had not shown up for work, which was very unusual for her. Charlotte's mother was at home when the doorbell rang. She opened the door to two police officers who delivered the devastating news that Charlotte had died. This left her family and friends utterly heartbroken. During the investigation, Jack mentioned that he had met Charlotte around 6 p.m. for a date. He said they had never met before but had planned to go to the Shard and then return to his boat. Jack noted that he had trouble recalling the details of the evening. Jack said that he had been the one steering the boat. They had then switched positions. When Charlotte was steering the boat, he moved to a seat while holding on to the crossbar because of the speed. Jack mentioned that there were life jackets on the boat, but they had not worn them because he had not told Charlotte about them. He also noted that he was not sure if she knew how to swim because they had not discussed it. They had been drinking on the boat, but his memory of the whole thing was hazy. After the incident, Jack went to a restaurant, ordered a bottle of wine, had a meal, and drank another bottle of wine before taking a taxi home. He said his memory of the entire evening was hazy. According to Jack, Charlotte wanted to steer the boat and he allowed her to do so. His memory is unclear due to his intoxication, but he always remembered that Charlotte was at the helm. He said that when he got into the water, he called out to Charlotte, but she was gone. He was eventually rescued from the river, but Charlotte's bag, which contained documents, keys, wallet, and mobile phone, was never found because it had fallen into the water. During police questioning of Jack, he appeared very upset. He was described as a well-dressed, well-educated young man who repeatedly claimed that Charlotte was the boatman and blamed her for the incident. Shockingly, many who knew Charlotte or heard of what happened were largely critical of her. Jack told the police that he had taken about 10 girls out on his boat before, returning to the house for fun afterward. When asked whether he took all of his dates on the river, he stated that these boat rides were simply part of his usual routine to impress and charm girls. The police then inspected the boat and discovered it was old, had been involved in multiple accidents, and had undergone several repairs. It had many other serious flaws, making it dangerously unsafe. Charlotte's friend Lodi became curious about Jack and sought to learn more about him. She discovered that Jack was 30 years old, a successful web designer and developer, and enjoyed flaunting his wealth. Jack created his own online dating site that focused on facilitating brief encounters, typically for 1 or 2 meetings. On Facebook, Jack had numerous photos of himself, both alone and with friends and women. He referred to himself as Captain Jack and often bragged about himself. The police wanted to question Jack again, but he arrived with his lawyer, who presented a statement on his behalf. In this statement, Jack claimed that his memories of that night were unclear and incomplete. He confirmed that he was on a boat with Charlotte and that a girl was driving at the time of the accident. However, he had no recollection of the crash or the events leading up to it, except that Charlotte was at the helm of the boat. After the lawyer read the statement, Jack was asked numerous questions. But he chose not to respond to any of them. When an officer criticized him for not giving Charlotte a chance to save herself by not providing her with a life jacket, Jack remained silent. Later, the police chief learned that the day after the accident, on February 9th, Jack went directly from the police station to the registry office to apply for a marriage license with his longtime girlfriend. In November, they welcomed a child. This means that after Charlotte's death, Jack got married and then moved to Wales with his wife. He wanted to get away from where Charlotte died and start over somewhere where no one would recognize him. He wanted to forget the past and start a new life. The police decided not to close the case because they sensed something was off. They quietly kept an eye on Jack's activities. The search for Charlotte's belongings, which were lost in the river, continued. Eventually, they discovered her bag and mobile phone. It took nearly a year to recover, clean, and dry these items. When the experts examined the phone, they found a video from that night. The footage revealed that Jack was the one driving the boat, not Charlotte. It became clear that Jack was attempting to shift the blame to Charlotte for her own death. In the video, Charlotte could be heard shouting that the boat was going too fast, highlighting that Jack had lied about who was actually at the helm. They inspected the boat again. The police discovered life jackets hidden on the boat, which no one had used because Jack had not informed anyone about them. It was concluded that it was unlikely the girl was both driving the boat and filming the video at the same time, especially since Jack was frequently seen on camera standing behind the wheel. On September 20, 2017, Jack was charged with manslaughter due to gross negligence. By October 2017, he appeared in court and was released on bail. However, on January 26, 2018, Jack failed to appear in court and pleaded not guilty to the charges against him. Meanwhile, the trial for Charlotte's death was approaching quickly. It was mid-May when Jack informed his legal team that he would not attend the hearing. He was determined not to go. When the trial began in July 2018, Jack followed through with his plan and did not appear in court. In contrast, Charlotte's family attended throughout the trial. They were understandably upset and informed on the first day that Jack would not be present. Jack's lawyers communicated with him online, sharing court documents for him to review and comment on. However, they did not know his exact location. Many were angry when Jack chose not to attend the trial, despite having legal representation. He seemed to believe that he was above the law and did not feel the need to be present because he claimed innocence. Jack repeatedly asserted his innocence and tried to blame Charlotte. Instead of appearing in court to defend himself or claim he did nothing wrong, he simply chose to hide. The court had to determine that Jack, as the owner of the boat, had a responsibility to ensure the safety of everyone on board, including Charlotte. The judge spent about 20 minutes looking at photos of the boat because they wanted to get an idea of the type of vessel Jack was using. All of Jack's girlfriends discovered that he had purchased an old boat at a low price from a website that sells second-hand items. Although the boat was in poor condition and required significant repairs, Jack, who had a good income, chose not to invest in fixing it. Instead, he used the boat for evening outings with his girlfriends. The court also found out that Jack had a date in August, shortly before he met Charlotte. As usual, their evening included a boat ride, during which they were stopped by the river police. The officers warned them about the importance of wearing life jackets to prevent any accidents. Jack had met this girl, like Charlotte and the others, on a dating site. They enjoyed their time together. He took her to the Shard, bought her drinks, invited her to his home, and then took her for a boat ride. However, he drove the boat at such a high speed that she became very frightened. Finally, she asked Jack to stop, let her off the shore, and call a taxi for her. The girl was called to court to testify. On July 10, 2018, Jack Shepherd was found guilty of manslaughter. Shortly after, news emerged that he had gone into hiding. His legal team tried to reach him, but he did not respond. On July 26, Jack was sentenced to 6 years in prison for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown, yet his whereabouts remained unknown. Police launched an international search for Jack and offered a $25,000 reward for any information leading to his whereabouts. It was eventually discovered that Jack had fled to Turkey and then moved to Georgia. British media discovered his residence in Georgia, revealing that he was living in dire conditions. He wanted to appeal his sentence, and eventually, a lawyer suggested he go on television to share his side of the story. Jack consistently claimed that he did not remember the events of that night. His memories were vague. In every statement, he mentioned that he only recalled how Charlotte switched places with him on the boat and took his seat, after which the accident occurred. In the interview Jack prepared, he was more open about what transpired, yet he still blamed Charlotte for her death. He refused to accept any responsibility and instead spread misinformation to the media. Jack then surrendered to the Georgian police. He believed he could contest his extradition with the assistance of a lawyer who claimed his innocence. He also hoped to have his conviction overturned. However, he was extradited back to the UK to serve his 6-year prison sentence for the manslaughter of Charlotte Brown. Charlotte's mom expressed her deep sorrow, saying that words cannot capture how incredible her daughter was. She described Charlotte as her best daughter and closest friend. She wants Jack Shepherd to understand that while he enjoys his life with his family, she struggles to find joy in her own life. She shared that the experience has been overwhelmingly painful and it's impossible to fully convey the suffering her family endured. Hello, crime enthusiasts, are you ready for another chilling investigation? The case of Monica McCarrick. Tori and her twin sister Lily Ball were born in September 2007 to parents Monica McCarrick and Michael Ball, who lived in San Diego, California. Their relationship was difficult from the start, partly due to their 10-year age gap. Monica struggled with substance abuse, which often led to her run-ins with the police. In 2006, she was arrested for domestic violence and given probation, but her aggressive behavior continued, eventually leading to the couple's divorce. Following the split, Michael filed for custody of the twins in 2009. Monica's life took a new turn. She began dating Robert Paulson, her first love. They had been friends for over 10 years, and their long-distance relationship began on Thanksgiving Day 2009 when Monica discovered her ex's social media page and contacted him. They began communicating as friends. However, Robert was in a relationship with another girl named Jill. In April 2010, a tragic event occurred when Jill took her own life with Robert's gun. Robert had a passion for guns and owned a collection that included a samurai sword and an agile rifle. After this heartbreaking incident, Monica supported Robert through his grief and they became closer, eventually starting a romantic relationship. In May 2010, Monica and the children moved to Pennsylvania. Their romance progressed quickly, leading to their engagement just days later. Monica was very happy during this time. She became a devoted mother, worked as a manager at a dental office, and pursued further education. Robert was also happy, and it seemed like their lives were improving. Unfortunately, this story would not have a happy ending. In August 2010, Monica and Robert moved to California while still planning their wedding. They rented an apartment in a residential area in Fairfield. Monica was looking for a school for her daughters and had obtained her license to practice dentistry. Robert supported her and admired her dedication as a mother to ensuring a good future for her daughters. He appreciated her calm demeanor. Robert worked for a film crew, which required him to travel for filming, resulting in him being absent for long periods of time. On September 9, 2010, just a month after moving to California, Robert was called away on a long business trip to film a movie in Minnesota. This left him with no choice but to leave, which upset Monica. She was not ready to let him go, as she still had unresolved issues from the move and wanted to improve their life together. Monica nevertheless agreed to let Robert go on the business trip. At first, everything seemed fine, but about 3 weeks after he left, Robert began to notice that Monica's behavior had changed significantly. She began to act very strangely. Monica discovers a script written by Robert that depicts a horror story about a man who chases children down a beach, ultimately leading to their deaths. Monica understands that the script is about her family and fears for her children's safety. However, Robert denied all of this. Robert insisted that it was a work of fiction related to his work. Throughout Robert's business trip, Monica frequently brought up her concerns in conversation. Eventually, she began to claim that Robert's previous girlfriend had died because of him. Monica suspected that Robert was involved with another woman at the time and believed that his affair contributed to his ex-girlfriend's tragic decision. Robert spent hours on the phone and texting Monica to calm her down. Unfortunately, this only worked for a short time before she began to express new suspicions. People who came into contact with her during this time noticed her paranoid behavior. Monica wanted Robert to stay home and objected to his long business trips. Robert reassured her that his trip to Minnesota would be over soon and that she was eagerly awaiting his return. On the day before his return, Robert's manager informed him that he would need to stay in Alaska for another 5 to 10 days to finish filming, as they had found the ideal location for some of the missing scenes. When he shared this news with Monica, she became extremely upset. She tried her best to convince him to return home with her and the children, saying that she could not handle the situation on her own. Although she pleaded for help, Robert felt helpless and asked her to be patient a little longer. Monica was not completely alone, her family supported her. However, Robert noticed that her mental state seemed unstable. Her friends, who remained in contact with her during this time, often mentioned this in their conversations. On September 25, Monica contacted her friend Regina, expressing that she feared for her life. Monica truly believed that Robert and his mother might harm her. She asked Regina to contact the police if anything happened to her. That same day, Monica contacted her friend Maritza to express her concerns about Robert and his family. She stressed that she felt unsafe and feared for the safety of her children. Maritza called her to discuss the matter further. During the conversation, Monica shared that her suspicions were related to a script Robert had written that depicted a murder involving a woman and her children. Maritza reassured Monica, and for a moment things seemed to calm down, but the calm did not last long. Maritza received another alarming text message 3 days later, on September 29th. In this message, Monica claimed that someone wanted to kidnap her children and harm her. She also contacted another friend, Pamela, expressing her fear that Robert intended to harm her. Monica was genuinely afraid for her safety, but she also hoped that her fears were paranoid. She stressed that if she or her children went missing, it was important to contact the police and hold Robert accountable. Unfortunately, Pamela was unable to visit Monica this time because she was in another city visiting her mother. The conversation ended with Monica declaring her intention to go to the police to prove Robert's involvement in the murder of his ex-girlfriend, Jill. However, many of her text messages were inconsistent. She expressed stress about raising her children, feeling overwhelmed by having to deal with the problems on her own. This confused the Pamela, who knew that Robert worked hard to provide for the family. At the same time, Monica often mentioned her desire to be free, to relax, and to enjoy herself. Michael often took the Tori and Lily out, giving Monica a chance to relax. She also had many friends and family to lean on. Not everyone was able to respond immediately to Monica when a problem arose, but they were able to reach her within a few hours to offer their support. They constantly help her. Friends and acquaintances noted that in Pennsylvania, Monica was much calmer and handled everyday problems well, even when she was alone. However, when she moved to California, where all her relatives and friends lived, she became panicky about Robert's absence. From September 29 to October 4, 2010, Monica and her children traveled to San Diego to visit their mother. During this visit, she shared a script written by Robert, which frightened her. She was also concerned about the many weapons stored in the home. She feared that Robert intended to harm them with these weapons and discussed her concerns with her mother. Monica was clearly nervous and anxious about her upcoming wedding. However, after she and her daughters went shopping for wedding dresses, her mood changed. Monica seemed happy and excited, taking many pictures of the dress she had chosen and sending them to friends and family, including one to her grandmother, Terry Faye. They had a close relationship, with her grandmother visiting regularly and supporting her. On October 11th, Monica called her grandmother Terry again and expressed her fear of losing her daughter and her concerns for her own safety. However, during this call, Terry noticed that Monica's behavior was unusual. Monica's situation is confusing. She has moved across the country in search of a better life, hoping to be closer to her family. Her goal is to marry Robert and build a life with him and their children. However, she frequently expresses fears for her safety, especially around Robert. Despite her fear of Robert, she pursues the marriage. Meanwhile, Michael is fighting for custody of their twins. Robert's mother, Roxanne, became increasingly concerned about Monica. While her son was away, she noticed that Monica was losing control. Monica handled things well at first, but as time went on, her instability became more apparent. Roxanne often takes Tori and Lily for walks, giving Monica time to rest. Occasionally, Monica and the children would visit Roxanne. An alarming incident occurred while Monica was sleeping at Roxanne's house. She suddenly woke up around 3 in the morning and began to prepare for something. Roxanne heard a noise and went outside to check what was going on. Monica pointed to a car parked on the street near her house, believing that someone was following her, which made her very nervous. Roxanne, knowing the owner of the car, tried to reassure Monica. The car belonged to a neighbor who had just returned home late from work. He had lived in the area for a long time, was a devoted family man and did not pose any threat to them. Monica's concerns did not subside, so she took her daughters and went home, insisting she did not feel safe. When she returned home, she began to feel more comfortable. The next morning, she informed Robert's mother, Roxanne, that she was feeling fine. In the afternoon, she called Roxanne at work, saying that a delivery man had come to her house and hinted that he might be part of a plot to harm her. Despite Roxanne's attempts to calm her down, Monica remained restless. She then tried to call her mother, but her mother was at work and could not talk for long. Her mother reassured Monica to calm down. Monica replied that everything was fine and then ended the call. The next morning, October 12th, the neighborhood manager came to Monica's apartment to ask her to move her car. She parked her car blocking several other parking spaces. When the manager knocked on the door, Monica was too scared to open it. After a long conversation through the door, Monica finally agreed to open the door and go outside to park her car properly. During this time, the manager noticed that Monica's two daughters, Tori and Lily, were in the apartment and they seemed okay. Monica called in to take time off work so she could get a new hairstyle for her wedding. While she was on the phone, her manager noticed a child crying in the background. Robert later spoke to Monica on the phone and via text messages. He found her messages confusing and included some inappropriate quotes. From what he could understand, it sounded like she was talking about children. One message read, "Let the bunnies go away forever." Robert understood this to be a reference to the custody battle involving Monica's ex-husband, Michael, who was seeking full custody. It was likely that the court would award custody to Michael, which would mean that Lily and Tori could be separated from Monica. With her past issues with substance abuse and mental health, she was at risk of losing her parental rights. However, Robert was busy and didn't think much of the message. That evening, Monica and Robert spoke on the phone. Monica was very difficult to understand, speaking very quickly and seeming to move around her apartment, with a lot of background noise. She hung up several times but called back immediately. She insisted that whatever had happened should be considered an accident. It was unclear what she meant, but her tone was very disturbing. Monica also mentioned that she had planned to start a fire with her children. Suddenly, the fire alarm went off, and he heard Monica scream before the call abruptly ended. Worried, Robert kept calling Monica, but no one answered. Worried, he contacted the police to check on her. It felt like a horrible nightmare, but he had no idea that the situation was much more horrifying than he could have imagined. Monica fed Tori and Lily and tied them to high chairs. She then took a samurai sword from the wall in Robert's office and began to violently attack the children. Within minutes, Monica had killed Tori and Lily and used their bodies to barricade the apartment door before setting the apartment on fire. The neighbors only heard the children's short cries and some noises, which did not arouse any suspicion. When the fire alarm rang, it was too late. The downstairs neighbor noticed smoke coming from the apartment above and called the police. After calling, he quickly ran upstairs and broke down the door, but it wouldn't open. He then tried to enter through the sliding window of the third-floor apartment. Luckily, he was able to reach the window and get in. The room was filled with thick smoke, making it difficult to see. When the neighbor entered the area where the tragic incident with the children took place, the entire floor was covered in blood, and there was a sword and a medicine bottle on the ground, which could have been the murder weapon. Unfortunately, it was too late to save Tori and Lily. When police arrived, they were unable to enter the home immediately because the children's bodies were blocking the front door. After some struggle, they were able to get inside. The entire apartment was filled with smoke, and the fire was in the pantry next to the front door. After the fire was extinguished and the smoke cleared, the rescue team discovered the children's bodies. They also found Monica, who was unconscious and had suffered multiple serious injuries that appeared to be self-inflicted. Monica was rushed to the medical center in critical condition. Her injuries included lacerations to her neck and hands, several severed fingers, and severed tendons. Both ankles were injured, and there was a deep wound to her thigh. During a search of the apartment, police found several weapons, including a loaded rifle, a shotgun, and a loaded pistol. A significant amount of live ammunition was discovered in the hallway, along with a sword and a lighter that Monica used to start a fire in the pantry. Two high chairs, which were overturned and covered in blood, indicated that the children were eating when the murder occurred, as trays with plates and food were found scattered on the floor. A laptop displaying cartoons was in front of them. The kitchen table was also smeared with blood, suggesting that there was an attempt to clean it hurriedly. Additionally, a thrilling novel by James Patterson about a serial killer was open to a page that read, "My daughter died." During the analysis of the vial, forensic experts found no dangerous or powerful drugs. During the autopsy, they discovered multiple injuries on Tori and Lily. Tori had 11 cuts on her face and deep wounds on the front of her neck. On her chest, there were 9 shallow cuts and 2 stab wounds. One punctured her lung and the other punctured her heart. Lily had multiple injuries, including 5 cuts on her face and neck and 9 cuts on her chest, including one so severe that it nearly severed her head. The sword had severed Lily's larynx and arteries. The children's arms were the most injured, suggesting the twins had attempted to defend themselves. None of the girls inhaled smoke from the fire, indicating that they were already dead when the fire started, as there was no soot in their lungs. The brutality of their murders shocked all the experts involved in the case. Shortly after being released from the hospital, 27-year-old Monica was arrested and charged with 2 counts of premeditated murder, arson, attempting to destroy evidence, and obstructing the investigation. Confined to a wheelchair and covered in bandages, she appeared in court on October 26, 2010, where she did not plead guilty. Monica argued that her crime was a result of insanity, leading to her being sent for a psychiatric evaluation from October 2010 to June 2011. A prison psychiatrist met with her more than 10 times, spending around 20 hours in discussions, conducting various psychological tests, reviewing her medical records, and speaking with her family members. The psychiatrist found that when Monica was 14, she had displayed similar self-harming behaviors. At that time, she was diagnosed with a type of attention deficit disorder and prescribed medication to manage it. However, she did not complete her treatment and later began abusing illegal drugs, which resulted in her developing bipolar disorder. The Monica stated that she started drinking alcohol at 12 and began using marijuana at 14, which ultimately led to her becoming addicted to illegal drugs by 18. From 2003 to 2005, she was diagnosed with depression while living in San Diego and received professional psychiatric treatment. After Robert went on a business trip, she relapsed and used drugs throughout September and October 2010. Monica reported experiencing paranoid thoughts, common in heavy users. She confessed to her psychiatrist that she had been heavily intoxicated in the 4 days before the crime. Monica often told her doctor that her addiction made it difficult for her to communicate with her children. As a result, she often tried to stay away from them, sometimes leaving them with strangers. She called her loved ones several times, seeking their help, and they tried to support her. However, the psychiatrist revealed that Monica's problems were not only due to illegal drugs. In the days leading up to the tragic event, she experienced delusions, paranoia, and feelings of being persecuted. She believed that Robert and his mother were planning to kidnap her daughters and torture them, a fear that was heightened by a story Robert wrote. In prison, she told a psychiatrist that she had read in a book the exact time that the attackers would arrive to try to enslave her daughter. The psychiatrist recognized this as a symptom known as reference ideas, in which the patient believes that ordinary events contain hidden messages. Monica was convinced that certain events were destined to happen. Monica believed that this was a sign that her children would be enslaved. In her desperation to save Tori and Lily, she realized that even if she saved them from Robert, she could still lose them if her ex-husband Michael won custody in court. This led her to the tragic conclusion that her daughters needed to be killed, which she did. However, despite her serious actions, her thought process showed that she was still quite sane, despite some mental health issues. She planned to barricade the door so that it could not be opened immediately and only set it on fire after killing her children, with the intention of covering up what had happened. Another psychiatrist, after speaking with Monica, concluded that she was not fully aware of her actions. He believed that Monica thought she was saving her children when she brutally killed them. On October 25, 2011, while in prison, Monica confided to a fellow inmate that she was hearing voices. By November, she began to have paranoid thoughts, fearing that she would be attacked. In April 2012, she overdosed while still incarcerated. Monica reported using illegal drugs, and prison guards observed that she drank up to 12 cups of coffee a day, which worsened her mental state. She frequently expressed concerns about threats to her life from prison gangs and often attempted to communicate with doctors and other professionals. But her reports were inconsistent, unclear, and sometimes completely false. Her psychological evaluation hearings dragged on. Michael attended the trial and asked not to show mercy to the Monica who'd taken the lives of the babies. The final decision was up to the jury. After hours of deliberation, they concluded that Monica had intentionally killed Tori and Lily. On June 15, 2012, Monica McCarrick was convicted of first-degree murder. The jury sentenced Monica to 2 consecutive life terms in state prison without the possibility of parole. During her trial, she cried. She told the court that she was praying for everyone's well-being despite her own deteriorating condition. Monica expressed that she loved her daughters. Monica is currently serving her sentence in a California prison and has attempted to appeal her sentence multiple times. On August 22, 2019, an online petition was started, urging the governor of California to overturn Monica's sentence. The petition claims that nearly all psychiatric experts who have reviewed her case believe she was not aware of her actions when the crime occurred. However, as of now, only 144 people have signed the petition, and Monica is still incarcerated. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Nicole Pitts. Nicole Pitts was born in late February 1973 and grew up in King County. She attended Eastern Washington College. Every summer, her family traveled to Seattle and spent much of their time at Lake Samash. Nicole had a close relationship with her mother, Gail, and had a good relationship with her father, Rod. In the 1990s, while working at a fitness club, she met her future husband, David. Their relationship quickly developed into a romantic relationship. After spending some time together, they married in 2002 in Maui, Hawaii. In 2005, the couple bought a condominium in Linwood, Washington, a place where they could enjoy their time together. At that time, Linwood was a quiet town with a population of fewer than 40,000 people. It featured narrow streets and many bars and restaurants, similar to their previous home. The young family quickly fell in love with the area. Nicole was outgoing and made friends easily. Within days of moving in, she had made many new friends. She is an animal lover and often walks her dog around the neighborhood or relaxes at home with her 2 cats. She cares for them as if they were her own children. Nicole's career was going well. After finishing school, she worked at a fitness club for a while, before becoming a corporate manager at a mobile phone company. She lived close to where she worked. Nicole was an important member of the team because she easily connected with her colleagues and helped them solve problems. However, she faced challenges from an early age. She was introduced to alcohol as a teenager and eventually became an alcoholic. This started when her parents divorced, which left her feeling lost. Her mother, a flight attendant, was often away on business trips, so Nicole was often left in the care of her elderly grandmother, which led to her hanging out with the wrong crowd. Fortunately, Nicole's parents noticed their daughter's issue early on, and with the support of her family, she was able to overcome her bad habit. They attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings together, where she received guidance, making her journey easier. However, her alcohol use had lasting effects, resulting in significant health problems. At age 21, Nicole was diagnosed with endometriosis and underwent 3 surgeries. Following these procedures, she was prescribed pain medication to control her chronic pain. By 2006, 32-year-old Nicole had been avoiding alcohol for 8 years. Despite this, she remained an active and valuable member of her Alcoholics Anonymous group. She attended every meeting, viewing them not just as a way to manage her own recovery, but also as an opportunity to support others in their struggles. Nicole understood the challenges of the fight against addiction. From a young age, she had a passion for cooking, which only grew stronger over time. She loved preparing a variety of dishes and often brought her homemade meals to work for her husband, David, who always appreciated her efforts. Nicole was very close to her mother and called her every day. In early 2006, she was excited about her upcoming 33rd birthday. However, just 2 days before her birthday, she unexpectedly missed an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in nearby Renton, surprising everyone. That night, David returned home late from work and went straight to bed, thinking Nicole would still be home. However, the next morning, he discovered that she had left, and he never saw her again. David tried calling Nicole to check on her, but she didn't answer his calls. He was worried that she might be upset because he hadn't spoken to her at dinner the night before and had gone to bed early from exhaustion. Despite his attempts to contact her, Nicole remained silent, which made him even more worried. He also contacted some of her friends and her mother, but no one had seen her. That evening, when David returned home and Nicole had not returned, he became alarmed. Worried, he decided to go to the sheriff's office, but was told that there was not enough time to classify her as missing. However, David convinced the police to investigate her whereabouts, as her behavior was very unusual, and he feared that something might have happened to her. Police arrived at David's home and discovered that, in addition to Nicole, her 2003 Volkswagen Jetta was also missing. Nicole had left for work that morning, but was gone. Her mother became concerned about Nicole's disappearance, especially since she had not received any calls from her daughter all day, which worried her. After police confirmed that no one had seen Nicole since she went missing, they began searching for her that same day. The family of the Nicole booked flights to Washington, hoping for the best and wanting to assist in finding their daughter as quickly as possible. Everyone was confused because Nicole was known to be reliable and responsible. She would never have vanished or ignored calls. Even if she couldn't answer right away, she would have called back soon. As her silence continued, her parents and husband grew increasingly worried. Those involved in the search for Nicole sprang into action immediately. Nicole's mother and stepfather went straight to the police upon arriving in the city. Members of the Alcoholics Anonymous Club, who cared deeply for Nicole and wanted to support her family, also joined the search efforts. The club was significant to Nicole, as she never missed a meeting and was set to receive an award for 8 years of sobriety, which she took great pride in. There was no reason for her to leave or abandon everything. Nicole's voicemail was filled with calls from friends and family, but none of them had been able to reach her. Some were concerned that Nicole might have relapsed, despite successfully battling her addiction for years. The police were actively searching for her, searching the surrounding areas of Linwood, but they found nothing. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents took action by creating a website to gather information about Nicole. Many people responded to the family's call for help, but most of the messages were just well wishes, and the little information they received turned out to be false. The search seemed to stall until a new event changed the course of the investigation. On February 7, a local resident was jogging near a wooded area of San Francisco Park, near a small lake. He accidentally discovered a strange object under a raspberry bush. Curious, he approached and was horrified to discover the body of a girl. A nearby witness quickly called the police. The police arrived in time, and acquaintances recognized the body as Nicole's. Forensic experts later confirmed that there was no evidence of rape. After the autopsy in the laboratory, it was proven that the Nicole had received multiple injuries during the beating, but the cause of death was asphyxia. The Nicole had multiple blunt force injuries on her legs, torso, and head, indicating a brutal murder driven by personal hatred. This raised the question, who could have done this? Nicole had no known enemies. The case was changed from a disappearance to a murder investigation. The news of her death was devastating for David and parents. News of her death devastated David and her parents. Police began investigating her bank card transactions to trace her final movements. They discovered that her card was last used on January 30 in a nearby town where she had paid for gas. Police requested video footage from the gas station, suspecting that the killer may have made the purchase instead of Nicole and hoping to identify him in the footage. While police wait for surveillance camera footage, they continue to search for Nicole's car, as it may contain important information for the case. Police reviewed Nicole's identity and social connections, but still found no clues. Nicole was known as one of the friendliest members of her work group and club. She had no enemies. Instead, she was a devoted friend, a loving wife, a caring daughter, and a skilled employee who loved her pets. Nicole even turned her own struggle with alcohol into a positive by supporting others who were trying to get sober, setting an example for them. While the police were searching for the car, her relatives and friends shared information about the missing car and Nicole's situation. They publicly appealed for help, urging people to be aware of the car and avoid touching it. Flyers were distributed that stressed the importance of calling the police immediately if the car was discovered, as the car was linked to Nicole's murder. This prompted local residents to pay attention to Nicole's car. On February 21, 2006, her car was discovered parked near the university. Police quickly seized the car for forensic analysis, hoping to gather evidence to arrest the perpetrator and piece together the events surrounding the tragedy. Inside the car, they discovered a large amount of trash and various items, including books and sports equipment. Police discovered that after Nicole went missing, someone had used her ID and credit cards. Police are investigating the possibility that Nicole's car may have broken down on the way and she was picked up by a stranger and harmed, and the location of her car was unusual because Nicole was supposed to be traveling to another city. The position of the car seat suggested that it had been driven by someone much larger and taller than her. In the lab, experts meticulously measured the seat position to gather clues about a potential suspect. They found DNA evidence inside the car, including hair and a single fingerprint. Police collected DNA and checked. Several patrol officers searched the area where the car was found. They asked anyone nearby if they had seen Nicole's car or who had parked it, but this did not yield any useful information. The police discovered that the car had been parked in the lot since February 10, as an illegal parking ticket from that date was stuck to the windshield. Unfortunately, there were no surveillance cameras available to assist in the investigation. Forensic tests showed that all traces of DNA in her car belonged to Nicole and David. The investigation yielded no new information to solve the case. By early April, there had been no progress. Nicole's parents had offered a $10,000 reward for any information that could lead to the arrest of the perpetrator. During this time, Nicole's mother, Gail, made frequent appearances on various television channels to raise awareness of the case. After a while, Nicole's family had to return to Arizona to work, but they kept in touch with the police who were handling the investigation. Nicole's father, Rod, was heartbroken and frustrated that the investigation was taking so long. Despite their efforts, the investigation continued without any breakthroughs. In September, the case was handed over to an experienced police officer. The new police quickly requested a search warrant for the house of the Nicole, which had not been done before. He aimed to find clues among her belongings, particularly on Nicole's computer. Unfortunately, the house revealed no signs of a crime, no blood or other evidence. The computer also yielded no useful information. Police continued to interview witnesses and acquaintances of Nicole. One of them was Barbara, a friend who had met Nicole at an Alcoholics Anonymous club. They had planned to meet at a coffee shop the evening Nicole went missing, but she never showed up. At first, Barbara thought Nicole was just running late. Then Barbara tried calling Nicole several times that day, but Nicole did not answer any of her calls. During this time, the police still had no clues to the case. Meanwhile, Nicole's parents, Rob and Gail, were at their home in Arizona. Their grief did not subside for a year. Feeling desperate, they decided to hire a private investigator because they were puzzled by the inconsistencies in the case. Nicole had left the house without her wedding ring, which was very unusual for someone who was so proud of her marriage and who would never willingly remove such a meaningful symbol. A private investigator began his investigation, but no leads were found. Nicole's family then increased the reward for information about the criminal to $25,000. Organizations focused on fighting crime and finding missing persons contributed an additional $1,000. The community remained tense, knowing that a dangerous criminal was still at large, the perpetrator seemingly without a motive, suggesting that he could be a madman ready to strike at any time. The police then requested a search warrant for Nicole's computer, believing it might contain clues about the criminal. In October 2009, the private investigator hired by Nicole's parents was charged with fraud. He falsely claimed to have found evidence in the case, but said he needed money to handle it. Her parents gave him more money, but then the private investigator disappeared and took on another case. As a result, his license was revoked. Nicole's parents no longer have a private investigator and no leads on the identity of the killer. In 2011, 5 years after Nicole's death, the investigation was still ongoing, but no significant updates were made. On March 21, 2012, the final suspect was arrested and revealed to be Nicole's husband, David. By this time, police had enough evidence against him. He was held in custody with bail set at $1 million. The prosecutor noted that the case had progressed significantly due to new technologies that were previously unavailable, especially in the field of forensic science. Police found that David's account of the night before Nicole's disappearance did not seem convincing. Additionally, police noted that only David and Nicole's DNA and fingerprints were found in her car. If strangers had been in the car, their fingerprints would still be there because they had not been erased. If the criminal had tried to erase the fingerprints, there would have been no fingerprints left. The driver's seat was adjusted to fit David's size, and surveillance footage from a gas station captured a person resembling him. After Nicole went missing, he used her cell phone to make multiple calls from various locations around the city. Police believed he was trying to throw the investigation off track. However, modern tracking technology allowed them to pinpoint the exact location of the calls, proving that Nicole could not have been there at the time because she was dead. Notably, both Nicole's and her husband's phones worked in the same areas. Strangulation, the method of murder, usually indicates a personal connection between the killer and the victim. Evidence found at the crime scene indicated that the killer was someone close to Nicole. This is consistent with the fact that she was not sexually assaulted. The medical examiner determined Nicole's time of death. It was found that she was killed at night or early in the morning, while still in bed. Her limbs were clean, with no signs of struggle. Forensic experts determined the time of death by examining Nicole's stomach contents. They found that the food Nicole had eaten the night before was still undigested, suggesting that she had been murdered before she got up to go to work the next morning. Although they appeared to be a loving couple, it was clear that this was just a cover, and there were multiple reasons behind the crime. At the time, the family was facing serious financial difficulties. David is quite the party animal. He enjoys drinking and smoking marijuana, which puts a dent in the family budget. Nicole spent a lot of time and effort dealing with her addiction and had been trying to stay sober for years. David was jealous of his wife's strength, He also had affairs, and during the investigation, it was discovered that he had had at least 4 affairs. His lifestyle meant that he often pressured his wife into having sex. He even tried to drug her at a club to convince her, but she refused. This made him angry. He often met women at clubs, which led to sexual encounters. Just days after Nicole went missing, he began seeking new relationships. By the time he was arrested, David had remarried and had a child. This was especially painful for Nicole's parents, as their daughter had always wanted children. But David had no interest in that. Furthermore, David quickly began collecting documents to claim Nicole's life insurance. After gathering all the information, David was called in for questioning. At the police station, he denied any involvement in the murder. When asked to take a lie detector test, he agreed, but the results showed that he had lied. He was eventually arrested and charged with murder, but David firmly denied any involvement in the crime. The trial started in September 2013, 7 years after Nicole passed away. Her family and friends gathered in the courthouse, hoping for justice. The defense lawyer for the David argued that Nicole's death was linked to her relapsed alcohol addiction and possibly a new addiction to prescription drugs. He pointed to an empty pill bottle found during a search of the bathroom as evidence of this. And the defense insisted that all the evidence against David was circumstantial and that the case was based on speculation. Nicole's parents testified in court that David did not participate in the search efforts, did not help distribute flyers, and only pretended to be upset. Nicole's mother explained that the medication in question was a prescription painkiller prescribed to her daughter to treat severe abdominal pain caused by her endometriosis, which had significantly improved her condition. Prosecutors were unable to prove intentional conduct, so David Pitts was charged with second-degree murder. David was sentenced to 18 years and 4 months in prison, the maximum sentence under state law. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Samia Shahid. Chaudhry Muhammad Shahid and Mitiyaz Shahid left their small village of Pandori in the Jhelum district of Punjab, Pakistan, in the mid-1980s to escape poverty and seek a better life. They immigrated to the UK, and in November 1987, their first child, Samia, was born in Bradford, West Yorkshire. A few years later, they welcomed their second child, a daughter named Mada. Shahid started a car rental business, which eventually grew to specialize in luxury vehicles, including limousines. As the business prospered, he helped 2 of his brothers and their families relocate from Pakistan to the UK. The Shahid family was well known and successful in Bradford, recognized for their wealth and influence. Shahid's brothers started and grew their businesses successfully. By the early 2000s, one brother owned a seafood shop chain, while the other ran a flower delivery and floristry business. Sisters Samia and Mada were born and raised in England, growing up in an interference of European and Pakistani cultures. However, their family strictly adheres to the traditions and laws of their homeland Pakistan. This created a sharp contrast between the liberal English lifestyle and the rigid rules imposed by their family. For instance, the girls were not permitted to drive, and their father closely monitored all their activities and interactions. The eldest daughter, Samia, was Shahid's pride and is considered Daddy's favorite daughter. He pampered her, buying her expensive clothes, jewelry, and let her study at the most prestigious university. She took great care of her appearance, using high-end cosmetics, go to beauty salons, and spend a lot of money there. Although she worked part-time at a post office, her lifestyle was primarily funded by her father, who fulfilled all her wishes. Secretly, Samia would sometimes rent a car and drive herself, as she loved driving and felt confident behind the wheel. She couldn't understand why Pakistani traditions restricted women from driving. Independent and strong-willed, she valued her freedom, but still made an effort to follow her parents' wishes and avoid upsetting them. Samia had many friends from university in England and stayed in touch with them. She was known for being bright, kind, and cheerful. Despite leading a life full of love and abundance, and seemingly having everything she could want, but she lacked the freedom to make her own decisions. She always acts according to the opinions of her parents and elder members of the family. Above all, she feared disappointing her father, whom she deeply admired. Yet, the strict rules, fears, and prohibitions in her life meant she could never truly be honest with her family. In 2012, Samia's parents decided it was time for she to marry, start a family, and have children. They insisted she travel to Pakistan to enter into a marriage that followed their cultural traditions. They chose her cousin, Shakil, as their son-in-law, a man she barely knew. Marriages between relatives and arranged unions are common in their culture. Samia had always known her parents would eventually select a husband for her, presenting it as a decision she could not refuse. She had resigned herself to this inevitability, but her father's choice left her deeply shocked. Samia found Shakil repulsive and could not imagine marrying him. To make matters worse, he had recently been released from prison after serving time for killing someone in a land dispute. Although Samia had interacted with him occasionally during childhood and had seen him as a brother figure, the idea of him as her husband was unthinkable. Her parents, who were also cousins in an arranged marriage, had fallen in love and built a happy life together. They believed the same would happen for Samia and Shakil, assuming love would grow over time. Despite her strong aversion to the match, Samia felt she couldn't defy her father and understood how much this marriage meant to her family. Her mother and younger sister Mata later asserted that no one forced her into the marriage. They thought that with her stubborn personality, they could not force her either physically or emotionally. According to them, she married willingly and of her own choice. In early February 2012, the decision about her upcoming wedding was finalized during a family meeting. In the weeks that followed, her parents, along with her aunt and uncle, who were also her future in-laws, took her shopping. She was able to choose anything she wanted: costly outfits, jewelry, accessories, cosmetics, and more. And they covered all the expenses. Outwardly, she feigned excitement of wedding preparations, but inwardly, she felt trapped. She already knew this marriage would not bring her happiness, but would instead feel like a punishment. Her true feelings could only be shared with her friends, not her family. At home, she had to maintain the appearance of joy, actively in discussing the wedding details, and prepare herself for her relocation to Pakistan. On February 20, 2012, Samia boarded a plane. She texted a close friend, telling her that she was about to fly thousands of miles to make the biggest mistake of her life, but she had no other choice. Later, she sent more messages, admitting that the very sight of the groom made her feel sick and that being near him was unbearable. On February 27th, Samia and Shakil had a grand wedding at Pandori, attended by around 1,000 guests. The wedding lasted 4 days, and as a wedding gift, Samia's parents gave she and Shakil a luxurious 2-story house located. However, Samia quickly realized that this beautiful house would feel like a prison, where she would be forced to live with a man she did not love. After returning to the United Kingdom, married life brought Samia no happiness. She still despised her husband, Shakil, and knew she could never love him. 4 months later, in mid-June 2012, she went back to her hometown of Bradford to handle some matters and assist Shakil with his immigration paperwork to apply for British citizenship. She planned to apply for a spousal visa for Shakil, but she postponed it to enjoy the feeling of freedom and have some time away from a husband she did not love. When Samia began processing the documents, she discovered that their wedding ceremony, conducted in full accordance with Sharia law, was only considered a marriage contract between Muslims and held no legal validity in the United Kingdom. To make the marriage legally recognized, it was necessary to follow European legal procedures, such as having a civil ceremony and obtaining an official marriage certificate. After returning from Pakistan, Samia's friends noticed significant changes in her personality and behavior. She seemed sad, her eyes were dull, and she was no longer the cheerful, sociable person they knew. It was clear she felt deep resentment toward her parents. Any discussion about her husband or married life made her uncomfortable and angry. The root of the problem was Shakil's extreme jealousy. Even from another country, he tormented Samia by constantly calling her and demanding video chats at any time. This allowed him to monitor her whereabouts, activities, and the people she was with. His behavior was not only a way to control her, but also a demonstration of his dominance and authority over her. In early August of that year, during a phone call with a close friend, Samia admitted that she was at her breaking point. She felt completely drained, had lost all joy and hope for happiness or a bright future, and no longer wanted to live. She expressed deep hatred for Shakil, saying she never wanted to see him again. However, she couldn't share these feelings with her family because they were busy bragging to everyone about the lavish wedding they had prepared for her. In early September, unable to resolve issues related to the marriage visa, Samia was forced to return to Pakistan to live with the husband she disliked, Shakil. She wrote frequently to friends, describing her misery, her distaste for her marriage, and her feeling of being trapped with no way out. This lasted for a few months, but then she started complaining less, and her mood gradually changed. During her next visit to the United Kingdom, the reason for this change became clear. Samia had met a young man online named Syed Mukhtar Kazim, a British citizen of Pakistani descent like herself. Syed was born and raised in London, but had been living and working in the United Arab Emirates for several years. The two began corresponding and quickly developed feelings for each other. They secretly meet, and in October 2013, they saw each other in person for the first time. Samia immediately realized that Syed was the man she wanted to spend her life with. He was kind, caring, attentive, and treated her with love and respect. They have many interests in common, but also understand the dangers in their relationship. Despite this, they felt that life only had meaning when they were together. Samia shared her situation with her beloved Syed and expressed her willingness to end her marriage to start a new life with him. However, she could not get a divorce in a British court because under local law, she was not recognized as married. In the spring of 2014, Samia decided to confront Shakil and asked him for a divorce. He refused rudely, declaring that she would remain his until the end of her life. During another visit to the United Kingdom to see her parents, Samia secretly reached out to a local Islamic Sharia council, explaining that she had been forced into the marriage, which was grounds for annulment. She also converted from Sunni Islam to Shiite Islam, the religion Syed now practices. When the cleric from the council contacted Shakil to hear his perspective on their marriage, he once again refused to cooperate, angrily declaring that he would not consent to a divorce. Afterward, the Islamic Sharia Council of the United Kingdom annulled Samia's marriage, acknowledging that she had been forced into it due to family pressure. Her family was unaware that she had divorced Shakil and was planning to remarry, this time to the man she truly loved, Syed. In September 2014, Samia secretly married Syed. Unlike the previous marriage, this marriage was legally recognized, and they also received a marriage certificate to confirm its legality. The cleric who approved the annulment of her first marriage was also the one who presided over the nikah ceremony. Only a few close friends attended the intimate wedding. Samia and Syed was overjoyed. Samia confided in her friends that she felt like a princess in a fairy tale and could hardly believe her happiness was real. Sadly, this happy moment turned out to be the beginning of a nightmare and eventually led to exile. When her ex-husband, Shakil, demanded that she return to Pakistan, She informed him that she was no longer his wife and presented her new marriage certificate. Enraged, Shakil immediately contacted Samia's father, igniting a major family scandal. Her family tried to pressure her into returning to he, even resorting to threats, but she refused. This thing led to dire consequences. A few weeks later, while shopping with her younger sister, Samia was brutally attacked on the street. Her sister was left unharmed, but she was severely beaten with metal bars and narrowly avoided having her legs broken. Although police took her statement, but the identity of the attackers remained unknown, and the case was soon closed. At this time, Syed had to travel to Dubai for work, leaving his wife, Samia, in the United Kingdom, where she was waiting for a visa to join him. The waiting period was agonizing for her, filled with threats, conflicts with her relatives, and fears for her safety. Her parents tried to prove that her divorce from Shakil was valid, and even confronted the cleric who had officiated her marriage to Syed. Samia's mother was especially enraged, hurling insults at her daughter, accusing her of disgracing the family, and warning that she would face severe consequences. In the spring of 2015, Samia finally received her visa and was able to join Syed in Dubai. For her, it felt like an escape, as she feared her family would do everything in their power to prevent her from leaving and force her to return to Pakistan. To protect herself, she entrusted her passport to friends, who also purchased her plane ticket and accompanied her to the airport to ensure her safe departure. A new chapter of Samia's life began. The following year was the happiest of her life. She lives with Syed, the man she loves, who always cherishes and treats her with care. For the first time, she could drive a car, something her parents and former husband Shakil would never have allowed. In photos she shared on social media, she appeared radiant, confident, and more beautiful than ever. It was clear she was living the life she had always dreamed of. She hoped to become a mother soon, but unfortunately, that dream was not realized. Despite this, she and Syed remained optimistic about the future, planning their life together, unaware that her family had decided against her. Shortly after Samia left, her parents filed a missing persons report with the police, which they later attempted to reclassify as an abduction, accusing Syed of kidnapping her. Meanwhile, Shakil's family began plotting ways to force she to return. They realized that threatening her was no longer effective, but they still believed they could exploit her emotions and compassion to manipulate her. In June 2016, Samia received devastating news. Her aunt, Shakil's mother, had passed away. Heartbroken, Samia considered traveling to Pakistan for the funeral, but knew it could be dangerous. Many relatives still resent her for divorcing Shakil and remarrying Syed. Her actions were seen as treacherous and shameful. A week after the funeral, her mother called again with more distressing news. Her father's health had sharply declined. He was diabetic, and his condition had become critical. Samia feared that if he passed away, she could never forgive herself for not visiting him. Despite her own worries and Syed's dissuasion, she decides to go to Pakistan. Concerned for her safety, she promised her husband to stay in regular contact. On July 14, 2016, Samia arrived in Pakistan and stayed at a close friend's house. She left her passport and return ticket to Dubai with her friend, expressing her fear and insecurity and asking her friend to pray for her safe return to Syed. The first few days were relatively calm. She kept Syed and friend informed about her activities. She visited her aunt's grave with family and met several relatives. Her return flight to Dubai was scheduled for July 21. However, on July 20, Samia abruptly stopped all communication. On July 20, 2016, a heartbreaking incident occurred when Shahid contacted the police to report the death of his daughter, Samia. Upon arriving at the house where Samia had lived with Shakil, police found her lifeless body at the bottom of the stairs. Sadly, it was too late to save her. They found bruises on her body, which her parents attributed to her falling down the stairs. A small amount of pink foam was flowing from her mouth. Shahid speculated that she might have had a heart condition, causing her to fall and tumble down the stairs. Since no one was home at the time, she did not receive immediate help and passed away. When questioned about Shakil, Shahid explained that he was away on business. The police found no evidence of foul play at the scene and opted not to open a criminal investigation. An autopsy conducted the same day revealed no signs of violence, concluding that her death was due to natural causes. Samia was buried just a few hours after her death. Her sudden departure was not considered suspicious and was not investigated by the authorities, but it had a devastating impact on Syed. When Syed learned of his wife's, Samia, sudden death from a heart attack, he was in shock and disbelief. According to media reports, she chose to end her life due to depression because she could not have children. However, her family rejected this version. They claimed that she passed out, then fell down the stairs and broke her neck. The investigation revealed bitter truths. Syed quickly flew to Pakistan on the earliest available flight and went directly to the police station, alleging that Samia had been killed by her relatives and Shakil. He detailed the forced marriage she had endured, her subsequent escape, and the threats she had received from her family. This testimony completely changed the development of the case, forcing the authorities to determine this was a criminal act. However, by this time, Samia had already been buried, and the official report still stated she had died of natural causes. Determined to seek justice, Syed turned to European law enforcement and the media, as Samia was a British citizen, to push for further investigation. Samia's father, Shahid, initially agreed to an interview, attempting to depict Syed as a fraud and extortionist. However, when Syed presented their marriage certificate, a medical report, and post-mortem photos of Samia, authorities launched an investigation. The report revealed bruises on Samia's neck and legs, along with traces of male seminal fluid, suggesting she had been in an intimate encounter shortly before her death. But with whom, given that Shakil allegedly wasn't home that day? Syed held a press conference, presenting extensive evidence, including text, voice, and video messages from Samia, where she repeatedly expressed fear for her life. It is believed that the police may have taken bribes, leading to the immediate arrest of Shahid and Shakil. Investigations revealed that they never intended to let Samia's return to Dubai. They forced her to go to the house given to her as a wedding gift, where they searched for her passport and tickets, which she had given to a friend to keep. In a fit of rage, Shakil physically restrained her. When she tried to escape, they caught up with her on the stairs. Shakil strangled her with her scarf, while Shahid held her legs, ensuring she had no chance to survive. Shakil later confessed to this crime at the police station, although Shahid denied any involvement in the killing of his own daughter. In addition to Shahid and Shakil, Samia's uncle, who received a fake report before the autopsy, and the police chief in charge of the initial investigation have both been arrested. In court, Shakil retracted his confession, claiming it was made under coercion. He spent just over 2 years in prison before being released on bail in September 2018. In 2019, he remarried and again tried to move to the UK, but still without success. Samia's father, Shahid, was imprisoned from July to December 2016 and later released on bail. He died in January 2018 at the age of 52 due to deteriorating health. Before his death, he maintained his innocence and denied any involvement in his daughter's death. Samia's uncle and the commissioner were also released in the fall of 2016 without facing any penalties. Shortly afterwards, arrest warrants were issued in Pakistan for Samia's mother and younger sister, but they quickly returned to Bradford. Her younger sister, Mata, later gave a detailed interview, which accused her and Syed of being the cause of their family's breakdown, attempting to tarnish their reputations. Welcome back, detectives. Let's dive into another horrible case. The case of Gladys Ricart. In 1979, in Tamboril, Dominican Republic, 20 years old, Gladys Ricart was raising her young son alone after her high school relationship failed. Her sister Norma lived in the United States, and she dreamed of joining her. Determined to make her dream come true, she worked tirelessly, saved every penny, and made many sacrifices. Eventually, her hard work paid off, and she was able to move to the U.S., settling with her sister's family in Manhattan, New York. However, she could not afford to bring her son Davis with her initially, so he stayed with family back in the Dominican Republic. After arriving in the U.S., Gladys focused on learning English and found a job. She worked diligently to save enough money to reunite with her son. By 1983, she succeeded in bringing 4-year-old Davis to the U.S. Determined to build a brighter future, she enrolled in college. Believed that education is the key to opening up better opportunities for yourself. She graduated with a degree in economics and used her knowledge to pursue a career in accounting. Due to her hard work, she quickly became a top expert and one of the most important employees of the company. Gladys started from the very bottom and worked her way up to become the chief accountant at a large travel agency in the heart of Manhattan. Over time, she improved her English, pursued an education, built a successful career, and saved enough money to buy an apartment. In many ways, she had achieved the American dream. The only thing missing was a family and true love. Despite this, she was cautious when it came to relationships. While it seemed that she prioritized her career over marriage, this was deep down. She longed to meet her soulmate. By 1992, after living in the United States for 10 years, Gladys had a daily routine. She took the subway to work in the morning and returned in the evening to her sister's house. One day on the subway, she met Agustin Garcia. He is a well-known leader in Dominica and also a successful professional. At 40, he has built a successful career after immigrating from the Dominican Republic to the United States as a child. Like Gladys, he had risen from poverty to success. By the time they met, he owned several small businesses and lived in a large house with his 2 children from a previous marriage. Agustin was highly respected within the Dominican community and was known as a dependable and helpful individual. Having experienced the hardships of migration and immigration himself, he is passionate about helping anyone who wishes to pursue this challenging path. He eventually became the director of the Dominican Chamber of Commerce in New York, along with several other organizations connected to his homeland. Beyond his roles in these organizations, he was deeply involved in social initiatives. Through his efforts, several kindergartens and schools were established, establishing him as a respected and influential person in the community. Agustin seems to be the ideal mate for Gladys, a determined and compassionate young woman. What she found most appealing about him was his kind and gentle nature. He was polite, sociable, and carried himself like a true gentleman, which immediately caught her attention. Their meeting was purely coincidental, as Agustin rarely used the subway. However, on this particular day, his car broke down, and he ended up taking the train. He was instantly captivated by Gladys's beauty and decided to strike up a conversation. They spent the rest of the ride talking, exchanged phone numbers, and quickly arranged to meet again. From that moment, their romance began. Agustin frequently took Gladys to restaurants, treated her to exquisite meals, and showered her with expensive gifts. When her family learned about her new boyfriend, Agustin, they were happy for her. He seemed like an ideal partner and a good father to her son. After some time together, Agustin invited Gladys to move in with him, and she eagerly accepted this long-awaited proposal. According to what she shared with her family and friends, her greatest dream at the time was for Agustin to propose marriage so they could build a family together. She envisioned raising 3 children with him, and even hoped to have more children of their own. At that point, she was not yet 33 years old. Once Gladys moved in with Agustin, things quickly began to deteriorate. Her son, Davis, had great difficulty getting along with Augustine's children. The boy tried his best, especially because of the sincere advice of his mother, who always wanted him to learn how to build good relationships with people. However, Augustine's children treated Davis with arrogance, and the situation never improved. The situation is getting more complicated. Augustine consistently sided with his children, even when they were clearly in the wrong, which created strain in his relationship with Gladys. After 2 years of enduring such a life and constant arguments, she decided she didn't want to cause her son any more pain. She told Augustine that they should stop living together. Augustine agreed, but did not end their relationship. He helped her find a new house, just a few minutes' drive from his own. It was a spacious 2-story house, and he didn't hesitate to spend money on her, perhaps as a way to ease the tension between them. They continued to see each other when he visited she. By this time, her family and friends had grown so accustomed to he that they considered him practically part of the family. He introduced Gladys as his wife wherever they went. Although they were not legally married, but Gladys kept trying to convince Augustine to have a wedding. However, he firmly refused because of the negative experience in his previous marriage. He insisted he didn't want to marry or have children again. According to Gladys's relatives, over time, this situation took a toll on her. The happiness in her relationship gradually fades, and Augustine's unpleasant personality becomes more and more apparent. He frequently had affairs and increasingly exhibit over-controlling behavior. The situation becomes even more complicated for Gladys, as she has known about his actions, but kept silent for a long time to avoid causing conflict. Unfortunately, her silence only made things worse. During one argument, he chased she and attacked her. She managed to hide and lock herself in a room, but from that moment, she realized it was time to end the relationship. However, she remained fearful of his manipulation for a while. Gladys wanted a solid reason to break up, one that would leave Augustine with no way to argue. The simplest way was to catch him in one of his affairs. By the fall of 1998, the situation became more tense when she went to Augustine's office and caught him with another woman. This gave her the perfect opportunity to end things. She immediately told him that things were over between them, left his house, and informed all his acquaintances that he was no longer a part of her life. Even though they had broken up, Augustine was not ready to accept such changes. He considered Gladys as his property after 7 years together. Following their argument, he repeatedly called her, left gifts on her doorstep, including bouquets of flowers and even a Bible. Gladys thinks these gestures are just meant to make her come back, but her family believed they held deeper symbolic meaning. Regardless, she was determined not to rekindle their relationship under any circumstances. Several months later, Gladys met a man named James Preston Jr. at a restaurant during her lunch break. James, who also worked in accounting and moonlighted as a musician, immediately clicked with she. They quickly fell in love, and after a few meetings, they decided to make their relationship public. Over the next 2 months, they spent all their free time together, and eventually, they set a wedding date for September 26, 1999. Gladys and her family were overjoyed as her lifelong dream of a wedding and wearing a wedding dress finally came true. She immersed herself completely in planning the wedding, focusing on every step of the preparation with complete joy. She was so preoccupied that she didn't realize Augustine had been coming to her house nearly every night, watching her for hours. His obsessive behavior made it clear he couldn't let go of his possessiveness. On August 12, about 6 weeks before the wedding, Gladys and her fiancé, James, were enjoying a quiet evening together when Augustine suddenly showed up at the door. Initially, he calmly asked to speak with her, but she refused. His demeanor quickly changed. He began yelling and throwing stones at the windows. Worried he might get more aggressive, she called the police. Agustin was taken into custody, but she chose not to press charges, wanting to avoid causing him trouble and to stay focused on her wedding preparations. This decision turned out to be a significant mistake. In September, just 2 days before the wedding, Gladys went to a store to purchase some items needed for the bridesmaids. Unbeknownst to her, Agustin had been following her. He approached her, hugged her as if they were still in a relationship, and behaved as though everything was fine between them. Gladys didn't resist, fearing that rejecting him might provoke his anger. They exchanged a few words before saying goodbye. That evening, she confided in James and family, sharing her discomfort and concerns about Agustin's intrusive behavior. However, she had no idea just how dangerous he truly was. On September 26, 1999, the day she had long awaited, her wedding day, finally arrived. She was at home surrounded by her family and friends, preparing for her wedding ceremony. She wore a wedding dress, had her hair, makeup done, radiant and happy to be a bride. Photos and videos captured these joyful moments, which tragically turned out to be the final ones of her life. Meanwhile, the groom, James, was already waiting for her at the church. However, the joy of the wedding was spoiled when Agustin, who was watching her, suddenly appeared. He used violence to murder her, causing her instant death. When paramedics arrived, there was nothing they could do to save her. Her dream of a wedding was painfully unfinished. Agustin was immediately arrested and taken into custody without attempting to flee or resist. During his interrogation, he admitted to frequently driving past Gladys's house, claiming it was due to his sentimentality. On the morning of September 26, he was surprised to see a crowd of people dressed formally, along with several limousines parked outside her home. He claimed he had no idea she was getting married that day. After driving past the house multiple times, he eventually stopped in front of it. Still unsure whose wedding it was, he decided to go inside to find out. As Agustin got out of his car across the street, Gladys's brother, Juan, approached him cautiously, aware of his bad temper. Juan tried to convince him to leave to avoid disrupting the wedding. It was then that he realized she was marrying someone else, but he didn't show any reaction. Agustin claimed he had been invited to the wedding, so Juan did not stop him, and he calmly entered the house. No one objected to his presence. Initially, when questioned about the attack on Gladys, Agustin claimed that he had no memory of it. However, after a while, he confessed to the detectives. The next day, he was brought to court for a preliminary hearing where he faced the charges against him. During this hearing, he had the opportunity to plead guilty and avoid a lengthy trial. The bail was set at $5 million, showing that he is a major threat to the community. The attack quickly became a major focus of attention because of the extensive media coverage. Journalists raced to create sensational headlines, spread rumors, and even offer unsubstantiated theories. Images of the killer, Agustin, began to appear regularly on national news. The case's prominence attracted numerous lawyers, especially top lawyers, who want to use the trial to enhance their reputation and advance their careers. Agustin's trial was scheduled for October 2, 2001, allowing the defense nearly 2 years to prepare and build a more positive image for the defendant. The hired lawyers quickly engaged with the media, organizing press conferences and making public statements. Their objective was to influence public opinion about the crime by portraying Agustin as a victim. Their first move was to accuse Gladys's brother, Juan, and her son Davis of assaulting Agustin. They argued that there was no intention to kill Gladys, and her death happened accidentally when he defended himself from an attack by Juan and Davis. At the same time, the defense sought to discredit Gladys by accusing her of multiple betrayals. They claimed she had been planning to reconcile with Agustin, but was secretly preparing to marry James. According to the defense, this betrayal pushed Agustin into a mental breakdown, leading him to attack her. They stated that he had been devastated to discover that Gladys, who had been holding hands with him at the supermarket just the day before, was preparing to marry James. They believe this is a crime due to emotional outbursts, which qualifies as manslaughter under state law. If accepted, this argument would significantly reduce Agustine's punishment to a sentence of 5 to 10 years in prison instead of life imprisonment. The defense emphasized that Agustine was a compassionate person who cared about the Latino community in New York. This has had a strong impact on public opinion. When false rumors began circulating that Gladys had been unfaithful to Agustine, her image in the public eye became negative. Some even believed that she deserved her fate. This was a devastating blow to her family. Realizing the immense damage caused by Agustine's legal team, her relatives started attending every press conference to protect her reputation. Gladys's family, siblings, and extended relatives denied the infidelity rumors, calling them malicious lies. They emphasized that the relationship between she and Agustine had ended long ago and could not be rekindled. It was Agustine who was always following her and acted inappropriately. They emphasized that out of compassion, Gladys did not file a lawsuit against him before the murder. The judge was informed about the murder. Press conferences and interviews with journalists were officially prohibited, but they had already caused harm to Gladys's reputation, create difficulties for the prosecution. During the trial, the defense team continued to depict Agustine as a victim, while tarnishing Gladys's image. However, the prosecution has one big advantage: the attack and Gladys's death had been caught on camera. The opening part of the wedding ceremony and preparations were recorded, but Agustine hadn't noticed it. Before the trial began, only the judge was allowed to view the footage. The defense argued that showing the video to the jury was unfair and worked hard to block its usage as evidence. After lengthy deliberations, the court ruled that the video could be used, but only the part where Gladys was attacked. This was a 15-second clip, and the prosecution worried it wouldn't be enough to persuade the jury, particularly since the defense could argue the clip was taken out of context. This limitation gave the defense some opportunity to build their case. The defense argued that Agustine was forced to take up arms after being attacked by Gladys' brother and son, and claimed that Agustine's attack on Gladys was unintentional. Despite the objections of Gladys's family, the defense insisted that everything stemmed from her dissolute behavior. They presented several witnesses, including a neighboring family. The father and daughter testified that they had recently seen Gladys at Agustine's house and believed the two were still living together as a couple. In reality, Gladys had visited only to collect her remaining belongings. Through such testimony, the defense succeeded in making the jury sympathize with Agustine. However, the prosecution was prepared to counter these claims. The prosecution relied heavily on video evidence showing the crime. The video captured Agustine murdering Gladys in front of her family, including her son, shows that he did not act in self-defense. The footage shows that after he entered her home, no one attacked or threatened him, contrary to his testimony. However, he still attacked Gladys as soon as he entered. The prosecution argued this was a premeditated act born out of jealousy. The prosecutor's office attempted to counter misleading statements from defense attorneys who sought to portray Gladys as an immoral person. There was evidence proving that after the breakup, Agustine had stalked she for an extended period. All of her relatives confirmed this. Even her son was afraid of he, knowing how cruel he truly was. Agustine's kindness and selflessness were merely a facade, hiding his true sinister nature. For at least several months, he had been surveilling her and making unannounced visits. In his car, authorities discovered a list of license plate numbers belonging to cars parked near her house. He wasn't just spying on her, he was meticulously tracking everyone in her vicinity, likely to distinguish the neighbors' vehicles from the car of her future husband, James. During the trial, Agustine made an unexpected and controversial decision. He chose to testify on his own behalf before the jury. This decision significantly influenced the outcome of the case. In legal practice, Such a move can either be a strategic advantage or a disastrous mistake for the accused. The prosecution asked him to recount the incident that took place in the house. One would think he would tailor his testimony to fit the defense's arguments, that he acted in a state of temporary insanity and was not in control of himself. He alleged that Juan and Davis attacked him, but this claim had already been disproven by video evidence. He also said that at that time, he lost of awareness and could not remember how he attacked her. However, he did not provide any evidence to support his claim of temporary amnesia. Although Agustin tried to show remorse and even shed tears, his actions were not convincing enough. For the prosecution, his testimony only strengthened their case, as it contradicted the defense's argument and offered no plausible reason for his actions. On February 1, 2002, Gladys's family awaited the final verdict. After a lengthy hearing, the jury deliberated and found Agustin guilty of premeditated murder. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after serving 30 years. Gladys was buried in her hometown of Tamboril in the Dominican Republic. Her body was brought home a week after her death and she was buried in her wedding dress. After his conviction, Agustin refused to speak publicly or give any opinion. A reporter later discovered that he turned to religion early in his imprisonment and began preaching to other inmates. Meanwhile, his lawyers fought for a reduced sentence, but several appeals were denied. Agustin remains in prison and will be eligible for parole in 2029. Hey detectives, welcome back. We've got another mysterious case to explore, the case of Kara Nichols. Kara Nichols, born on May 20, 1993, was the middle child in her family. She grew up with her brother Terrence and younger sister, living in a very united and loving family. Sociable and friendly, Kara thrived in school and had a strong passion for art, particularly painting. Her talent has won her many awards in art competitions. At the same time, she is also considered to have a promising future. She is also very empathetic, often understanding and feeling other people's pain as her own. During her teenage years, Kara's behavior changed a lot. She became introverted, and her academic performance dropped. At the age of 13, she was arrested for shoplifting and sentenced to community service. Her parents, Julia and Paul, were confused by this sudden change in their daughter. She never lacked for anything, so her stealing may have been her way of rebelling against established norms. At 16, Kara's mental health deteriorated after the death of her beloved dog, plunging her into a deep depression. Her parents arranged for her to see a psychologist, but the sessions were ineffective and her condition worsened. Eventually, she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, where she was diagnosed with a personality disorder. After a short period of treatment, her condition improved with prescribed medication. However, due to the many side effects of the medication, she decided to stop taking it and turned to illegal substances, believing they would be a better alternative to antipsychotics. Before graduating, she had to transfer schools several times because of behavioral problems. After graduating from high school, Kara worked as a waitress, while also pursuing her childhood dream of becoming a model. With her attractive appearance, she believes that she will succeed in this field. She has been working hard to find modeling agencies and increase her body of work. During this time, her health improved greatly, and she was no longer addicted. However, over time, she came to understand that success in modeling required more than just beauty. It also depended on luck and connections. In the summer of 2012, Kara's family relocated to Chicago, Illinois. Unfortunately, the move was difficult for she, and her depression returned. Stress caused her to turn to drugs again, despite her parents' best efforts to support her and take her to a rehab facility. In the end, she was kicked out of there for not following the rules. Her parents were worried, not only because of her behavior, but also because of how she was funding her addiction. Her salary as a waitress was not enough to cover these expenses. Kara's parents felt disheartened. Her mental state changed from day to day. After some brief conversations, she decided to move back to her hometown, believing that being in familiar surroundings and reconnecting with old friends would help her recover. Although her family disliked the idea, they couldn't persuade her to stay. Eventually, she returned to Colorado Springs, and her brother Terrence promised to help her. The care and affection the two siblings showed each other comforted their parents. However, Kara valued her liberty and chose not to live with Terrence, visiting him only occasionally. Instead, she decided to rent an apartment with 3 male friends, which shocked her parents when they found out. They insisted she move out, but she refused, explaining that she had no better options and felt the men were no danger. Gradually, life returned to normal for Kara. She resumed her previous job and continued her modeling career by creating a profile on Model Mayhem. Over time, she received more modeling offers, but they didn't produce the results she had hoped for. Standing out among thousands of profiles proved is big challenge. Eventually, Kara encountered financial difficulties. She fell behind on her rent and had to eat food from his roommate. She confided in her brother, Terrence, who provided her with financial support. She was determined to seize the opportunity she received on October 9. However, no one expected that night to be her last. At the time of her disappearance, Kara was 19 years old. She was last seen wearing a hooded sweatshirt, dark jeans, white DC sneakers, and pink headphones. Kara is a girl with outstanding height, with green eyes, and has 2 tattoos, a marijuana leaf on her right ankle and an astronaut on her left wrist. She also had multiple piercings on her ears and above her lip. Flyers distributed in the area described these features, along with other details about her appearance. It was also noted that she struggled with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder. Her older brother, Terrence, was the first to suspect that something was wrong. Soon after, her parents, Julia and Paul Nichols, joined the search for their daughter. Although Kara used banned substances, but her family knew she always stayed in touch and kept them updated about her whereabouts. When she failed to call back on October 10 and 11, her family became increasingly concerned. They always cared for her, but she wanted to live freely and did not want to follow any constraints. Lately, she has become more withdrawn and only talks to her brother Terrence. Kara's modeling job did not bring in the expected income. So, when she was offered a well-paying lingerie photo shoot, she eagerly accepted. She told her roommates about her plans and left late at night. The shoot was scheduled for early morning in Denver, so it was more convenient to leave the night before. She wasn't traveling alone, she was accompanied by colleagues from the industry. Since neither she nor her friends had a driver's license or a car, they managed to find someone to drive them. At first, Kara's story didn't raise any suspicions. People who know her often see her modeling profile and social networks filled with professional photos. Everything seemed normal until she failed to return the next day or the day after. The last time her brother, Terrence, spoke to her was at 11:45 p.m. on October 9. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted, and she did not call back. Terrence thought the phone was disconnected and went to sleep, not knowing that he would never hear his sister's voice again. As of October 10, Kara did not respond to any calls or messages. Her voicemail was consistently active. Terrence assumed she was either busy or resting after work. However, by October 11, there was still no word from her. This strange silence made him extremely worried, because it was not like Kara was always out of contact. Worried, Terrence decided to visit Kara's home and spoke with her neighbors. None of them had seen she in several days. One young man mentioned seeing her get into a dark-colored sedan around 11:00 p.m. Unfortunately, he couldn't identify the driver due to the darkness, but noted that she didn't seem to be alone. Terrence then went into Kara's room to look for clues. He noticed that her essential belongings, such as her cosmetics bag, purse, charger, and laptop, were still there. On the bedside table, he even found $300 in cash. It was clear she hadn't planned to leave for an extended period. When he opened her laptop, he discovered that she hadn't been online for more than 2 days. This was unusual, as she was often checking her email for modeling opportunities. Convinced that something was wrong, he reported her disappearance to the police. At the police station, Terrence explained everything in detail, but the police were in no hurry to begin the search. They argued that Kara was an adult and didn't have to inform anyone of her whereabouts. They suggested she might have been held up at a photo shoot, gone somewhere else, or possibly had a boyfriend no one knew about and was spending time with him. However, the police's explanation still did not reassure Terrence. He knew his sister well. No matter what happens, she will definitely contact him. He was certain something bad had happened to her. However, the police calmed him down and asked him to come back later. Terrence then contacted their parents. He explained the situation and asked for their help. He understood that in a situation as serious as this, there needs to be joint cooperation. Upon learning of their daughter's disappearance, the family quickly flew to Colorado Springs. When they received the news that their daughter was missing, Kara's family quickly flew to Colorado Springs. Her cell phone was still off, and she had missed an important appointment, which made they even more worried. They then went to the police station to ask the police to carefully review the report they had filed. The El Paso County Sheriff's Office eventually recognized that the circumstances surrounding her disappearance were concerning. Detectives contacted locals to find out information about Kara's whereabouts. Kara's parents permitted investigators to access her cell phone data. Experts confirmed that her last message was sent to her brother, Terrence. Data from her cellular provider indicated that on October 9th, her phone was traveling north before it was turned off. Friends and acquaintances joined the search, distributing flyers across Colorado Springs and Denver. Investigators also looked into other communication methods used by Kara, particularly her laptop. This leads to the discovery of a secret she has kept from her family. Some of her modeling jobs are actually a cover for a call girl service she has been involved in since she was 17. This shocked her parents, Paul and Julia, when they learned the truth about her income. Unfortunately, they needed to agree to release this information to generate new leads, but doing so could negatively impact the investigation and reduce public interest. There were many cases where the victim's image was significantly distorted, and Kara's family did not want to share their hardships. However, they felt they had no choice but to hope to find she. Unfortunately, no miracle happened. After the new information was released, media outlets began canceling interviews with her family, leading to a decrease in coverage of her disappearance. The search for Kara was suspended. The National Women's Coalition Against Violence and Exploitation was the only organization involved in assisting with the investigation into Kara's disappearance. They helped keep her case front of mind for the public and the authorities. In November 2012, detectives announced that they would interview 2 women who were believed to have been in the car with Kara on the night she disappeared. Descriptions of these women suggested they might have worked in the same field as Kara. While they were important witnesses, they were not considered suspects, as they were likely the last people to see her alive. A composite sketch of one of the women was released to the public, but no one came forward with information. This made people doubt the existence of these women, and the investigation was stalled again. That month, Kara's photos appeared on a call girl service website in Las Vegas. However, detectives confirmed that she had not posted them herself. Someone had exploited her fame for personal gain, and the profile was eventually taken down. Although some people interested in the case contacted the police station, after investigation, these reports were confirmed to be false. In the spring of 2013, a businessman from Colorado Springs claimed to have seen Kara between late October and December 2012 with a tall, disheveled man. She looked frightened, suggesting she was being held against her will. One day, this man pushed her, and a bystander intervened, threatening him, and asked him to leave her alone. The witness's account was verified, although police found the man described, but he said the woman with him was actually his ex-girlfriend. In the summer of 2013, a criminal law student took it upon himself to investigate Kara's case. He traveled to Denver, spoke with many homeless individuals and substance users. Several people reported meeting Kara at a non-profit that provides syringes and needles to drug users. However, this lead turned out to be false, as did all the other testimonies he received. Many people have lost faith in Kara being found alive, because she has been missing for longer than the usual disappearances. In the fall of 2013, Kara's parents have offered a reward to anyone who provides information about their daughter's whereabouts, to no avail. They ruled out a ransom kidnapping as no demands were received. However, the following year, a new development occurred, providing a major breakthrough and reigniting the investigation. In May 2014, Deputy Sheriff Cliff Porter admitted that he had mishandled the investigation into Kara's disappearance. He admitted that he had not focused enough on her case and had overlooked important evidence from the beginning. This admission shocked her family, who felt that their daughter's case had been neglected because of her profession. The mishandling of cell phone records has raised concerns about the conduct of the investigating agency. The administration has been criticized for inaction. Multiple audits have led to disciplinary action against the department, and several individuals have been fired. In May 2016, former Sheriff Terry Makita and some of his staff were charged with corruption, fabricating witness statements, kidnapping, and extortion. This led Kara's family to believe that her case had not been properly handled. However, this situation has led to the opening of a new investigation, especially when new detectives are involved. On February 1, 2022, Christina Hollendorfer went to the police station. Before that, detectives had tried to talk to her several times, but she refused to cooperate. It turned out that since 2014, she had not wanted to testify against her ex-husband, Joel. However, after many years, she decided to speak up and accuse him of killing Kara Nichols. An analysis of Kara's calls and messages showed that she received 8 calls between 9:58 and 11:08 p.m. on October 9, most of which were from Joel. Detectives had questioned him several times, but they only received general information. He admitted that he had hired a call girl and had planned to meet her between the evening of October 9th and the morning of October 10, but the meeting never happened as the escort did not arrive. Joel's statement raised suspicions, especially since data from Kara's phone indicated that she was near his parents' house on the night she disappeared. On October 15, 2014, detectives searched Joel's home and his family's property. During the search, they spoke with Joel and his mother, Betty. They seemed calm and friendly, and it did not appear that they were hiding anything. They willingly showed the detectives around the property, including several fresh burial sites for deceased animals. Joel's family has owned the farm since 1985, which includes a large livestock yard. Dogs trained to detect human remains searched the area and reacted near some livestock graves. However, further investigation of these graves found no evidence of human remains. It's possible the dogs mistook the scent of dead animals for that of a human. To rule Joel out as a suspect, samples from several suspicious areas were collected and analyzed. Unfortunately, the results indicated that the samples were not connected to the case. Despite this, suspicions about Joel remained. As it turns out, Joel has a history of serious harassment and has violated his probation multiple times. He was a hardened criminal who consistently broke the terms of his parole and used banned substances. This led to the breakup of his family. Investigators approached his ex-wife, Christina, multiple times. During these discussions, they revealed that she and he were raising 2 children together. Initially, she was hesitant to share details about their life and eventually stopped communicating altogether. As a result, Joel remained the sole suspect in Kara's disappearance, along with other theories. After 8 years, new information about Joel has come to light. Christina claimed that in November 2014, he had confessed to her that he had accidentally killed a call girl and buried her body in an old horse grave. She learned of this confession after his father's death. Following the funeral, he revealed that he felt guilty about his father's passing. According to Christina, he confessed to his parents what he had done. After hearing this, his father, who was old, fell into a severe depression. This condition severely weakened his father's health and eventually led to his death. During that time, his family covered for him. This behavior explained the hospitality and cooperation shown by Betty and Joel during the search of the farm, as they sought to avoid raising further suspicion. On February 3, 2022, authorities conducted another search at Joel's home. They thoroughly excavated the farm and discovered human remains buried in a 2-meter deep pit. 4 days later, he was arrested. Subsequent analysis confirmed that the remains belonged to Kara, who had been missing. Although only bones were found, modern technology allowed for her identification. During questioning, Joel initially remained composed, but eventually confessed that he had not intended to kill Kara. He said he met her through a call girl website. On October 9th, he called her and arranged to meet, then picked her up from her home. They had some intimate moments in his old car, and everything was going smoothly until he suddenly strangled her. When he realized she had lost consciousness, he stopped. He attempted to perform first aid, but it was too late. She was already dead. Panicked, he drove her to his family farm and buried her in the first grave he found. Over time, he moved her body several times and ultimately buried her where his mother's favorite horse was laid to rest. This explains why service dogs get confused about scents. Additionally, this specific area had not been searched during the initial investigation. Joel Hollendorfer was soon charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Meanwhile, his mother, Betty, claimed she had no knowledge of her son's crime, insisting that she had always cooperated with the investigation and truly believed in his innocence. The hearings occurred in the summer of 2023. The prosecution argued that Joel deliberately committed the crime to fulfill his dark fantasies. Meanwhile, forensic experts were unable to provide a clear explanation for Kara's death. However, they determined that asphyxiation was the cause, based on the fact that her hyoid bone was broken. Experts stated that it is impossible to accidentally strangle someone to death, as there is always time to reconsider and stop. Another important factor was Kara's condition related to drug use. The defense claimed that her death resulted from asphyxiation. They argued that a healthy person would have a much better chance of recovery in similar circumstances than someone dependent on substances. The trial described Kara as a severe addict, suggesting she had little chance of survival due to the long-term effects of the drugs on her body. Unfortunately, the defense's claims cannot be verified or denied at this time. Kara's family was deeply distressed by the way their daughter was depicted. Her father said this description made the jury lose sympathy and view her as a victim who did not deserve mercy. Throughout the trial, Joel did not show remorse, and some witnesses noted that he even smiled at times. In the end, Joel's charges were downgraded to second-degree murder. He was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 24 years in prison. This sentence did not satisfy Kara's family, who had hoped for a life sentence for Joel. Additionally, due to a lack of evidence, no other individuals were held accountable. Kara's parents said the verdict was a serious failure of the justice system. Hello again, true crime fans. We've got another mysterious case to explore. The case of Roni Reuter. On the morning of Thursday, October 4, 2007, neighbors of Roni heard heart-wrenching screams and loud bangs coming from her apartment. Alarmed, they called 911 and requested authorities to investigate. The police arrived immediately, and when no one came to open the door, they forced their way inside. In the kitchen, they found a woman lying face down, wearing body armor, with wounds to her head, arms, and pregnant belly. It appeared she had tried to shield her unborn child by covering her stomach with her hands, causing both her hands and stomach to be injured. There were 2 wounds to her abdomen, indicating that the baby was the main target of the attack. The attacker then inflicted injuries to the back of her head. Tragically, both she and her unborn child were dead. The brutality of the crime left the police deeply shaken, questioning who could commit such a horrific act against a pregnant woman. A forensic investigation uncovered a spent 9mm cartridge case and 5 unused cartridges near the body. There were no signs of forced entry, robbery, or sexual assault, ruling out a random attack or burglary. This led investigators to believe the murder was personal and premeditated. It seems that Roni has a dangerous enemy who has harmed her. Police theorize that the attacker attacked Roni as she was preparing to leave the apartment to go to work, ambushing her when she opened the door. Detectives interviewed her neighbors, hoping to find witnesses or valuable leads. The neighbors reported hearing sounds resembling gunshots, leading authorities to suspect the killer used a silenced weapon. A neighbor reported seeing a skinny African-American teenager wearing a hooded sweatshirt, walking up the stairs to Roni's door at around 7:00 a.m., shortly before the incident. Later, another neighbor saw this person running out of the house, get into a small black car, and drive away from the parking lot. Police reviewed surveillance footage from cameras near the house. The footage captured a black car, likely a Volkswagen, arriving at 7:04 a.m. and leaving at 7:55 a.m., aligning with the time frame of the murder. However, the driver of the car has not yet been identified. Inside Roni's purse, investigators discovered a mysterious letter. The letter referenced Sean, the father of her unborn child, and claimed to have uncovered details about him. It alleged that Sean had romantic relationships with women from various countries, listing the names and phone numbers of 16 women he had affairs with. The letter also mentioned Roni's pregnancy, stating that Sean did not want the baby. Detectives suspected the murder was linked to Roni's pregnancy and believed Sean might have crucial information. The teenager seen near the house became the primary suspect, and both he and the black car were placed on a wanted list. Meanwhile, investigators began looking into Roni's social relationship to determine if she had any enemies. She was born in the small town of Potosi, Wisconsin. She met Sean at a charity event in Wisconsin, and the two quickly fell in love. After completing college, she moved to Deerfield, Illinois, a wealthy Chicago suburb with a population of 20,000. At the time of the murder, Roni was 42 years old, lived alone in her condominium. She was 7 months pregnant, eagerly preparing for the arrival of her first child, a baby girl she planned to name Skylar. The father of her child was Sean, 45, her partner of 17 years. Despite dating for many years, they did not marry or live together. Sean, a former Chicago Bears football player, was questioned by detectives for 10 hours. He shared how much he loved Roni and was looking forward to their child's birth. Roni deeply loved him, but Sean's feelings were more complex. He admitted to detectives that he had multiple affairs, which strained their relationship. He said that Roni knew about his infidelity, and it had caused her to grow distant from him. Despite this, he insisted he was excited to become a father. He appeared heartbroken over the tragic deaths of Roni and their unborn baby, and his emotions seemed genuine. Additionally, his strong, athletic build did not match the description of the thin teenager a neighbor claimed to have seen. Sean told the police that he had overslept that morning, he waking up at 9:15 a.m., and then went to a barbershop for a haircut. This alibi was confirmed by the barbershop administrator. However, the barbershop was close to Roni's house, just a 10-minute walk from her home, which made the detectives suspicious. They considered the possibility that Sean might have killed Roni or orchestrated the crime by hiring someone else. Despite his alibi, investigators did not eliminate him as a suspect and continued looking into his potential involvement. They questioned Sean's friends to evaluate whether he was capable of murder, his relationship with Roni, and whether he truly wanted the child. Sean's close friends have strenuously denied that he committed the crime, insisting that he was delighted to be a father, despite his relationships with other women. When detectives visited Sean's home for a follow-up interview, they discovered parenting books and baby items, indicating that he was preparing for fatherhood. During the interview, police asked who he thought might be responsible for the crime. He listed 16 women he had recently been involved with, and emphasized one name in particular, Monika Kurowska. Sean said that Monika, a fitness model from Poland, was someone he had dated while living in Europe. Their relationship ended a year ago, but Monika couldn't accept the breakup and began stalking him. She traveled to the United States and started following him. One night, she came to his apartment complex, ringing all the doors, including those of his neighbors and his own. When he stepped outside, he discovered a broken window and noticed Monika had blood on her hand. He found her behavior very worrying and dangerous, so he took out a restraining order against her. Sean suspects that Monika is the one who sent letters to Roni and his other lovers. These letters caused conflict between him and Roni. He suspects Monika because she follows him and knows all his secrets. In addition, the letters contain common errors in people who are just learning to speak English, like Monika. Even his mother received such a letter. Detectives became interested in Monika and eventually located her. During questioning, Monika denied any involvement in Roni's death, claiming she had an alibi. She was at work on the morning of the murder. The police confirmed her alibi. Monika shared a slightly different account of events. She admitted traveling to the USA to see Sean, hoping to win him back. Upon arriving at his home, she discovered him with another woman. In a fit of anger, she knocked hard on the window and accidentally broke it. Following this incident, she ended her relationship with Sean and claimed it was the last time she saw him. She also denied sending letters to Roni or Sean's mother, but the police remained skeptical of her story and continued to view her as a suspect. Despite their efforts, the investigation stalled. They suspect both Sean and Monika, as each had a motive to harm Roni, but both had alibis. No other suspects emerged. Then, the case took an unexpected turn. Police continued to question all of Roni and Sean's relatives. During the investigation, an acquaintance of theirs expressed suspicions about Marnie Yang, who was said to be obsessed with Sean. Investigators learned that Marnie had been in a relationship with Sean. The two had met 6 years earlier at a Chicago Bears convention, and Sean later reached out to her for help with real estate. Marnie, a realtor, had facilitated several real estate transactions for him. Marnie, single mother of 3 children, worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, including as a realtor, a waitress, and even photographer. Over time, she grew close to Sean, and their relationship continued up until Roni's murder. It was later revealed that they had slept together the day before the crime. This led investigators to scrutinize Marnie more closely. After speaking with her family and friends, they concluded that Marnie was obsessed with Sean. She viewed him as her possession and wouldn't leave him alone. When she discovered he had other relationships, she became furious. Her jealousy drove her to want he all to herself, believing he should belong only to her. She calls him her boyfriend, despite the fact that their relationship was short and fleeting. Detectives questioned Marnie, but she firmly denied any involvement in the crime. Despite this, she was unable to provide an alibi for the time of the murder. She claimed she was at home with her children, but the lack of evidence to support this made her the primary suspect. Detectives believe Marnie fits the description of the person they are looking for. With her petite build, she could easily be mistaken for a teenager if she was wearing a sweatshirt and hood. After obtaining a search warrant for the home, police discovered several important clues. Upon examining Marnie's computer, they discovered she had access to Sean's email and had been secretly monitoring his messages. Among the emails, they found letters from Monica to Sean written in broken English. Marnie had mimicked Monica's writing style, including the grammatical errors. She sent anonymous letters to several women involved in Sean's life, such as Ronnie and his mother. These letters contained accusations about Sean's relationships, and investigators concluded that her intention was to frame Monica as the main suspect. However, her plan ultimately failed. The police discovered a broken computer hard drive and several bank statements in Marnie's trash. The bank statements showed that she had hired a private investigator to collect detailed information about all the women in Sean's life, including their full names and addresses. Inside Marnie's apartment, investigators found postal receipts with the addresses of Ronnie and several other women who had received anonymous letters. It also came to light that Marnie owned a gun. In September 2005, she was stopped at the airport for purchasing and transporting 2 pistols and 200 rounds of ammunition. Although she provided the required paperwork, the weapons were declared and shipped to Chicago. Marnie's former lover, who was a deputy sheriff, confirmed that she owned multiple pistols and was highly skilled at shooting. One of her guns was a 9mm pistol, the same type used to kill Ronnie, though this particular weapon was never located. Investigators also learned that Marnie had attempted to construct her own silencer. Her bank statements revealed she had purchased a book titled How to Make a Disposable Silencer, along with a hacksaw and other materials from Home Depot. It can be used to make a disposable muffler. Detectives questioned Marnie about the evidence they had gathered. She said she bought the book as a joke gift for a friend and insisted she did not own a 9mm pistol or have any involvement in the crime. Despite her denials, 40-year-old Marnie was arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Ronnie and her unborn child, based on the circumstantial evidence. The prosecution argued that Marnie's actions were driven by jealousy. She was infatuated with Sean and obsessed with keeping him to herself. To eliminate her rival, she sent anonymous letters to other women in Sean's life, causing many of them to leave him. However, Ronnie stayed. Although upset with Sean, Ronnie maintained their relationship, especially since she was carrying his child, a child he deeply wanted. Marnie doesn't want this child to be born because she knows that it might cause Sean and Ronnie to become more attached. Marnie's primary objective was to kill both the child and Ronnie. During the trial, witnesses familiar with Marnie testified about her extreme obsession with Sean and the drastic actions she took for his attention. They revealed that she had hacked into Sean's email account, read his correspondence with other women, and angrily deleted messages before he could see them. When she discovered emails from a woman named Monica, she devised a plan. Marnie, in Monica's writing style, sent an article exposing Sean from an anonymous email account with many errors. She spent the entire day talking about Sean, causing her colleagues to become concerned about her behavior. At the trial, even Marnie's daughter, Emilian, testified against her mother. Emilian, 20, expressed concern about Marnie's erratic behavior and obsession with Sean, which seemed to have driven her out of control. Sean also took the stand, detailing his tumultuous relationship with Marnie. He described their relationship as intense, but revealed that Marnie became deeply upset when she found out about other women in his life. She tried every way to keep him, but the obsession in her actions eventually drove him away. Sean said he had been planning to break up with her. When asked whether he believed Marnie could have murdered Ronnie, who was pregnant, he hesitated and expressed doubt. The prosecution's key witness was Christy Passion, a friend of Marnie's. Christie testified that Marnie had been reading Sean's emails and frequently expressed dissatisfaction with his relationships with other women. In the summer of 2007, Marnie confided in Christie about her frustration over Sean dating other women and even mentioned plans to kill him. At the time, Christie took it as a joke and assumed she was simply venting. However, when Marnie discovered that Roni was pregnant, her focus shifted. She saw Roni as her main rival and became determined to eliminate Roni's at any cost. She told Christie about her plans to kill Roni instead of Sean, believing this would allow her and Sean to be happy together. Christie once again paid no attention to this, thinking it was just Marnie's imagination. Marnie later admits to Christie that she brought the weapon to Roni's apartment, but could not bring herself to do it. This confession makes Christie nervous, but Christie tries to comfort her and stop her from acting on her emotions. The day before the murder, she asked Christie to read her fortune to see if she would succeed in killing Roni. As an experienced tarot reader, Christie laid out the cards, and the one Marnie chose suggested success. Obsessed with the idea of killing Roni, the pregnant woman, Marnie ignored Christie's pleas and remained determined to carry out her plan. Christie later contacted Marnie, and they arranged to meet. During their conversation, Christie secretly wore a recording device, and the recording was later used as evidence. At this meeting, Marnie confessed to killing Roni, explaining the details of the crime. She revealed that she had disguised herself by wearing a wig, dark makeup, and gloves to avoid leaving any evidence. Marnie said she knocked on Roni's apartment door, and when Roni opened it, she drew her weapon and entered the house. She acted quickly, attacked Roni before Roni could scream. She admitted to being cautious, ensuring she didn't touch anything in the apartment and keeping her gloves on to avoid leaving traces. Marnie also described renting a black car, using a disposable phone, and then throw away the murder weapon, wig, gloves, and clothing in separate trash bins. She planned the murder meticulously so that it could not be detected, but Christie would testify against her. The recorded conversation became the prosecution's most compelling piece of evidence during the trial. The police investigation showed that Marnie's work computer had directions to Roni's house saved. They also confirmed that she rented a black Volkswagen on October 3. The vehicle's route was tracked from the rental location to Roni's apartment and back. However, the defense argued that there was no physical evidence that Marnie was at the scene, including DNA, fingerprints, or phone records. The case was based largely on circumstantial evidence in Christie's testimony. The defense wanted to discredit Christie by emphasizing her dubious background. They revealed that she had once claimed to be a psychic in the U.S. Army and said she was the sole survivor of a mission in the Middle East. However, it was later proven that she had fabricated her military service and had never even been in the Middle East. She had lied to enhance her qualifications for the role. The defense argued that Christie's testimony was unreliable and accused the police of falsely assigning blame to Marnie for the murder. The defense argued that there was no concrete evidence against Marnie, other than circumstantial evidence and recordings made under duress. The lawyer argued that Marnie confessed out of fear and in an attempt to protect her children, as her eldest son was under suspicion. Furthermore, an unidentified fingerprint was discovered on the door handle of Roni's apartment. The lawyer emphasized that the fingerprint did not belong to Marnie and that the police had failed to determine who it belonged to. The prosecutor acknowledged the existence of the fingerprint, confirming it was not in any database. However, they contended that the print could have been left by anyone passing by and was not necessarily linked to the crime. Marnie was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder for killing Roni Reuter and Roni's unborn child. She received 2 life sentences without parole. She and her lawyers opposed the sentence and filed an appeal, but it was denied. Marnie later claimed that she deliberately confessed to the murder to Christie to protect her son and stop people from bothering her. However, no one believed her explanation. Why would she include so many specific details about the murder if they weren't true? This makes no sense. The defense team argued that the black car seen on surveillance footage was not the Volkswagen that Marnie had rented. They also stated that a man had informed the police he had stolen Marnie's gun months before the murder, meaning she did not possess a gun at the time. Additionally, the murder weapon was never recovered at the crime scene. Fingerprints belonging to someone else were found, and they did not match Marnie's or any family member's fingerprints. The lawyer pointed out that male DNA was discovered on the cartridges at the crime scene, but it did not match Marnie's DNA and instead belonged to an unidentified man. The defense stressed that forensic analysis of the shooting angle indicated the attacker was taller than Marnie. Crucially, new CCTV footage from a hair salon showed Sean arriving for a haircut much later than he had claimed during police questioning. The footage revealed that he arrived at 10 a.m. on the day of Roni's murder, and she was killed before 8 a.m. Sean had previously told police he slept until 9:15 a.m. that morning, but evidence showed he had already sent a message to Roni and made several phone calls by 8:50 a.m. This video exposed inconsistencies in Sean's timeline, suggesting he could have had enough time to commit the murder. While the defense suspects Sean of being the perpetrator, they have not yet succeeded in having the case reopened. Marnie is still in prison and maintains her innocence. Sean, a former Chicago Bears player, played for the team for 11 seasons from 1984 to 1994, including their Super Bowl win in 1985. Having overcome his struggles in the United States, he now lives in London, United Kingdom, where he works as an NFL analyst for Sky Sports, a British sports channel, and regularly shares his expert analysis on weekly broadcasts.